We have got a fantastic episode planned for today. I know I say that every week, but every week I mean it. So, this week, in honor of NaNoWriMo, we have planned to talk about creative burnout as well as what to do when your creativity well runs dry. And then what is writer's block? Writer's block is different from burnout and other creative roadblocks that the mind plays tricks on us with. And to help me is our lovely panel of amazing, talented folks, including Charlie and Laura and Tom.
Yo.
You just wanted me to finish that sentence. Yo quiero Taco Bell.
But I know this panel well enough to know that everyone here has had so much experience essentially keeping their creativity charged and addressing when their mind plays tricks on them. Because it's probably going to happen to most creative people at some point in their life. That something about your life and your brain is not going to quite work out for you the way you want. And the creativity will not work when you go to draw on it. And it can be a disconcerting situation. It can honestly be a little bit scary if you're not expecting it. So my panelists here have all come armed with lots of tips and tricks and experiences and ways to do self-assessment of what is going on and what can I do about it.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions out there is if you sit down and are just unable to write today, you have writer's block.
Yes.
Because just having a bad writing day does not writer's block make.
That is not, yeah,
that is not what it is.
Necessarily what writer's block is.
And it's really frustrating because when you look at a lot of articles online that are like, how to defeat your writer's block in 10 easy steps. They're not actually talking about writer's block. They're talking about a slump. They're talking about you are just lacking the motivation today. You're just don't feel like being in the chair. Just it's more those kinds of things. Whereas writer's block, at least in my experience, is the complete inability to switch the imaginative function on.
Mm-hmm.
There's just nothing there at all. It's emptiness. It's hollowness. There's no story to come out. And it's not just I don't feel like doing this today. Because that's where I'm at today. Like, I just don't feel like writing today. I just don't feel like writing. It's not writer's block. It's not burnout. It's just a slump. I wrote a lot last week, especially considering I had not been writing before. And I'm just a little brain tired.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that can be one of them. I've heard from folks in the past about, I think I have writer's block. And I'm like, describe it to me. And I mean, I can honestly, Scout's honor, 8 out of 10 times they are describing exhaustion to me. And I'm like, that's not block. You just literally need to get some good quality rest. It's called you've got to take care of your body. And your brain is part of your body. Yes, I know. It's controversial.
Blow my mind.
Just call me an edge lady.
The best way I can describe my actual physical experience of writer's block is as if my muse is having a panic attack and I'm just sitting there staring at it, not knowing what to do. Like, I'm not having the emotional experience, but I'm in the room just at a complete loss of like, I should be doing a thing. And being in that just gasping, like, oh no, something is wrong here.
Yes.
But it's as somebody who has an anxiety disorder, it's not an anxiety effect in me. It's more Like when you see somebody else going through it and you want to help them. Because
Mhm.
I know that there's a story there. I know that there are ideas. Writer's block tends to come for me when I've actually outlined and planned things. Like the more I plan, the more apt I am to hit that just absolute wall of no, none for you. You get nothing. Which is why I persist on as a pantser, even though I really don't want to be.
Which, I mean, like, it. Nevertheless, block can be caused by a couple different things.
So what is writer's block?
Your mileage may vary because your brain is not like everyone else's brain, because no one's brain is like everyone else's brain.
What's the definition of writer's block? Because
I mean, you're actually a librarian, so you know I'm Googling it.
I have been burnt out. I have been stuck on a story that just needed to percolate more. Like, but what is writer's block?
Okay, according to Wikipedia, writer's block is a condition primarily associated with writing, in which an author is either unable to produce new work or experience a creative slowdown. Mike Rose found that this creative stall is not a result of commitment problems or the lack of writing skills. The condition ranges from difficulty in coming up with original ideas to being unable to produce a work for years. Writer's block is not solely measured by time passing without writing. It is measured by time passing without productivity in the task at hand.
So, like, you're told an interesting writing prompt, and your brain's response is, well, that's interesting. Anyway, so
Yeah,
we need to go eat.
Like, I have literally in the past sat down, turned off my phone, told my closest loved ones I'm not going to be responding. It's just for like this 4-hour time block, and like establish what I would quote office hours of I'm not available from, this time to this time. And it's always in a 4-hour time block because of the way my brain works. And sat down and desperately wanted to write and could not write. Like, no thoughts came. So instead, I did the thing that so many people have prescribed before, which is you just write down every stupid thought you have. And at the end of 4 hours, I still had nothing. I had nothing creative. I just wrote about the color of my carpet and what my shoes look like and my thoughts and my inadequacies and then what I want for dinner. Like, I manufactured thoughts, but nothing creative, nothing imaginary, nothing story wise or even nonfiction wise. And then this happened for days and weeks in a row. When I desperately wanted to write a fiction story or write some, I wanted to get away from my own life. I wanted to like go into my imagination. And my imagination was like, I'm sorry, we are closed for business. Unavailable. And it felt scary that I could not open the door to my own imagination when I wished to access it.
That was me through all of college.
Yes.
Versus exhaustion is where you're just too tired to do it, where you do not have the physical and mental energy to concentrate on it and create it. But you still will have little weird thoughts, and your imagination still functions.
Like where your brain starts coming up with random headcanon. That's creative, right? You're like, oh, maybe like this is, this movie and this movie exist in the same unit. That is still a creative thing. But when nothing like that is happening, like even when you want it to.
Yeah, most of this year I've been bouncing back and forth between writer's block and exhaustion because my writer's block this year especially was born out of the same thing it was born out of last time, and that was this this business being a horrible beast monster that can just consume you, and you spend so much time trying to figure out how do market, how do this, how do that, is this story even marketable, if so how is it marketable, that there's no that creativity could not enter the room. my brain switched completely over into analytical mode.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about like, well, how do I get people to remember that I am a writer, to know that I am telling these stories, how do I promote them? What's the point of writing them if I don't know how I'm going to promote them? And so the creativity completely shut down. And those few brief glimpses of the creativity coming back, I would then work so hard because I was desperately afraid that I would lose it again, that I would work myself into exhaustion and then sleep for a week. And I went back and forth in this cycle of just being afraid that the best part of my career was behind me.
Oh my God. Tom has had to deal with my tears on that one.
Because, I've never been like a world-renowned or famous writer, but I used to be able to put out books and sell a couple thousand copies per book.
Mhm.
Like, that's the thing that I could do. When I was unable to accomplish that task again for The Noble Sacrifice when it came out, my brain went, oh, you failed at marketing, and just shut down all of my creativity. It shut down all of my ability to be able to write and like, no, we have to fix this problem. You used to be able to market these books. You used to be able to get people interested in what you're doing. And the real answer, of course, is I spent a decade building up a fan base that when I put out a new book, I could say, hey, I have a new book, and they would go buy it. And because of my unplanned mental health vacation, a lot of that has gone off into the woods.
Right.
And it's not so much my fault as it is just, I am literally starting over again.
And the world changed in the meantime.
Yeah.
The world changed how they communicate. By the way, hello, Everett. Hello, Carrie.
But yeah, my brain would not let me have a single creative thought at all.
And versus, we were talking about exhaustion.
Yeah.
And I wanted to real quick bring this up because this has been fascinating, and it does help people a lot, especially with anxiety, to realize what's going on in their life when they have writer's exhaustion, or really just a creative exhaustion. So Carrie mentioned the, being out and about and doing mom stuff and getting all the ideas and then sitting down and it's like, And so one of the things psychologists have studied and have found in general for humans is the average person has, and I quote, 4 hours a day of creative thought. That's it. You can be creative for 4 hours. How you use that creativity is up to you.
Also, most human beings, their creative thought time is on a circadian rhythm. And you need to figure out your own circadian rhythm. So, for instance, it's taken me literally decades to figure out that consistently my circadian rhythm does change with, when I wake up and when I go to sleep at night, of course. But when I naturally, say are waking up around 8 a.m. my local time, my best creative time will be in the mid to late afternoon. And my prime creative time is, and this will not surprise any of y'all, between 4 and 6 p.m. my local time, i.e. why we do the show during this time. But that is when I am at my most creative. So, I love you if I'm going to edit your work between 4 and 6 p.m. my time. Because it means I'm giving you my A++ USDA best of the best choice time to be as most analytical and creative at the same time. I'm using all my pistons for you, or for whatever my endeavor is, because that's when I've got the most creative time. So you figure out for you what your natural circadian rhythm is going, like when are you most likely, and also understand that as your circadian rhythm changes, that creative window may also change.
Because
So
mine has shifted a lot over the years.
some people are morning, what is it? Morning larks,
Yep.
early birds, whatever. And other people are night owls. And there's something for afternoon. I can't remember.
Afternoon flamingo, according to NaNoWriMo.
Is that a thing? Because I have not heard the flamingo part, but okay, I'll go there. Give me some shrimp, baby.
A midday flamingo is what I am labeled as right now on NaNoWriMo site.
I have not heard that, but okay. But yeah, like you most people know when they feel most creative on a normal day, like their regular schedule. They'll know when their brain is like, all the pistons fired. It was great for 2 to 4 hours. It was amazing. And I kept being constantly interrupted, and I still was thinking thoughts. Carrie says, sometimes I do end up playing video games during the time, but I count that as self-care. I agree.
Again, creativity is when you are when you're getting the dopamine response, when you are getting the reward for activities. So it's when are those times? You often find it's the times when you like to play games. It's when you like to be most chatty.
Or you like to problem solve.
Yeah. This
you
is your
love to solve problems in order to get that dopamine.
Or, as Susan Miller, pointed out, it might be the time of day when you get most amorous.
Oh, yes, that's right. Because in astrology, which is essentially, let me be really honest, ancient astrology is just what, that was the name for human psychology back then. I swear to you. But it was one of the things that astrologers, and we're talking like thousands of years ago, noticed about human beings of you can be creative or you can be, how should we say in modern text, thirsty? But it is the same energy in astrology. So you have to decide, are you going to use it for very white purposes? Or are you going to use it for writing or other creative endeavors?
Because back when I was originally doing my first bit of creative output, I was most creative between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. I would get up at 4, I would have breakfast, I would get everything set up for the day. I would write from 5 to 9 a.m. And in that time, I would write roughly around 3,000 to 6,000 words, just like clockwork. And then I would go on with the rest of my day. And it was wonderful. And it was great until it wasn't.
And again, that daily cycle, whether it's working for you or not, is about the exhaustion and use of your creative cycle versus block is where it never shows up.
Yes.
So versus like for me and my circadian rhythm, when I first get up, I'm not very creative. Honestly, I swear, I know this sounds weird, but it takes 2 hours for my brain to fully boot up. So I prefer not to drive the first 2 hours I'm awake. So for instance, if I have to commute to work, I have to wake up usually 2 to 2.5 hours before I need to leave because I don't feel safe driving until the brain is fully booted up. But in that time period where the brain is not fully booted up, sometimes my body has energy, but again, the brain is not booting entirely yet. And so for instance, if I have physical energy, but not the mental energy, I like to organize things because, put things in little categories like, do my morning pills for the next week or two, or my evening pills, or, yes, very white purposes, or, like for instance, vacuuming, sweeping, things that are organizing, but really require no or not much real thought. If you could teach a toddler to do it, I can do it the first 2 hours I'm awake. Like put away dishes, but only if the dishes have a labeled home. Not, oh, now you need to find a new place for this new dish to go. Oh, no. That's going back in the dishwasher till like I finish waking up. But most people I know, their brain is like that at the end of their
Can
day.
you hear Roy making noises in his sleep?
Yes, go get those squirrels, Roy. You could do it. But like most people I know, their brain is like that the last 2 to 4 hours before they go to sleep, where they're like little Roombas. All they're good for is like bopping around and putting things away in other rooms or sweeping or vacuuming, that kind of thing, because it doesn't require a lot of thought, but their body still has a little bit of energy left. So again, I really want to point out how there's like a natural circadian rhythm that human beings, for the most part, unless you have a specific circadian rhythm disorder, and I am not talking about those folks because they got their own troubles to deal with. And that is a real kind of disorder, by the way, that I have known a couple creative folks who have been diagnosed with. So that's a whole nother matter. But kind of start paying attention to what is your natural circadian rhythm of how your mind and body work best together and apart. When is the best time of day for you to sweep and vacuum?
Never.
Maybe not.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Is that when you put on the fluffy socks and you just shuffle around? But like, if you know the time of day when you can do the mindless household tasks, then that's probably not a great time of day for you to try to sit down and be creative.
And that's where a lot of writers especially have problems, because they're trying to fit their writing into their day job. And their day job is right in the middle of their creative peak time.
Yep.
And then they get very frustrated that they are not having the creative output that they want in their off time. That very often is not your fault at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, I really feel like we need to go back to some of the older language, I just lost her name. Just shot out of my head. The author of Eat, Pray, Love suggests in Big Magic, where we talk about having a genius rather than being one. Because when you're putting all the onus on yourself, it feels like it's your fault when you're not being creative. But it's not. The creativity has a time.
That's why, sorry.
Hello and welcome to the ADHD support group meeting. Here we are.
And that's why, like, some people get these projects done that it doesn't seem feasible. Like, what was it? The Gray series.
The Gray series?
The fanfic of
Twilight.
Yeah.
50 Shades.
50 Shades.
Oh, 50 Shades Gray series.
She's writing it on the way to work and leaving work, when she's sitting on a train.
True. And she just wrote it on a Palm Pilot.
That's when that's when her brain's little creative dopamine cycle happened to coincide with before and after work instead of during working hours.
Also, I know for many creative people, one of the things that I've in my research about creativity is, if you know the time of day when you are at your most creative, and then you sit down or you prepare yourself and you just don't feel like this is working for you, like normally this is when I'm most creative, and then when I sit down to write, it's just not coming, or it's not comfortable. So there is another factor you need to be creative, and that is you have to feel free to daydream. So I remember, who was it? Was it Irma Bombeck? Oh, shoot. It was one of my mother's favorite writers. But my mother loved to read essays by other women, and she would always get me to read these too when I was young. But it was one of these, kind of well-known, probably in the 70s, kind of writers. And she talked about how she went to the grocery store to get all her ideas, all her writing ideas. And what that meant was, it wasn't that the grocery store actually contains the ideas. It does not. Because she often actually wrote things that had zero to do with domesticity. But what it was she would go with a steno pad and get a grocery cart, and she would literally wander through the aisles. And, if she saw something they needed at home, she'd put it in the cart. But otherwise, she would wander through and then just keep writing out all her ideas. And that's literally how she generated ideas to write about and to pitch to editors, was while strolling through the grocery store in the middle of the day when it's not that busy and there's hardly any people there. This was the best time for her to do it. And so she would just be writing on this cart as the cart is slowly inching forward in the aisle. And she would do this for like an hour to two. And she said sometimes 3 hours a week. She would do this. But that's how she would generate her ideas, because there's something for her about going through a grocery store. And it is the place where she daydreams the most. Because if you think about it, it is the place that doesn't really need your uppermost thoughts that much. You can just sort of la 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 la. Oh, look, peas are on sale. Oh, that gives me an idea. And that was how she did it. And Mom and I look at each other, we're like, we should try this. And we literally go, and what we ended up doing was us going with our cart, and a stenopad didn't quite help us, but us going together with a stenopad and just literally chatting while we wander through the aisles together. And we didn't have to talk, but if we talked, and we would just start riffing on each other and come up with so many ideas and so many problems solved by just daydreaming and wandering through the grocery store together. You kind of have to figure out, where do you feel most comfortable and safe daydreaming? Because that is also more than likely what's going to help you be creative, help you really tap into that creativity.
So I call my sister and will lob ideas off of her brain, and she'll pick apart all the plot holes for me. It's like, dang it! But she'll help me fill them. So having someone that's not judgy and is very open-minded and not scared of your horror stories,
right,
is very nice to just lob ideas and just have a brainstorm session for an hour or so on the phone at a time.
So this also is another piece of psychology that plays out in different ways, and people don't always realize they're all related. This is also in couples, specifically mostly cohabiting married couples and long-term married couples. Whenever you hear the line, sorry to be so frank, why don't we have sex anymore? The answer in 90% of cases that therapists have found is there's too many other thoughts of tasks that still need to be done for amorous feelings to show up, because there's still house cleaning, maintenance, children's tasks, all these other things going on. It's hard to have that amorous thought, which we also realize is creativity, which is why often an easy way to tap into creativity, people find, as Gloria said, is like going to a different location, somewhere outside of where you feel responsibilities. Whenever you feel like you have unaccomplished responsibilities with a semi-deadline on them, that will also squash your creativity. So it's either you have to find a way that they can go on the back burner and you don't need to worry about them. Whether that's, you schedule them and you always follow that schedule, and they will eventually, you can tell yourself truly it will get taken care of. You don't need to think about it. Or you go to a different location where it's not the main concern. Like often Gloria and I and all of our family have our most entertaining conversations driving or even just sitting in the car in front of the house. Because we know once we get into the house, a lot of this creative discussion will end.
Yep.
And it's just part of how the brain works.
And there's so many things we need to do inside the house.
And there is the real...
There's always laundry to be folded. There's dishes to be loaded or unloaded. There's tons of chores that need to be done. But outside the house, parks, in the driveway. None of that. You can't fold laundry out there because there's no laundry in the car.
And this is why I hate to defend it, but there is a certain truth for some people, not all of them, some of them are posers, for coffee shop writers.
Yeah.
Of here's a location that you have no responsibility in. There's lots of little distracting sounds that are not part of your problem, though. So they keep your brain from staying, stuck in one single thought. And so it can be freeing on creativity.
So
Go on.
I wrote a flash piece called Cloak of Bones, and I liked it, but I felt like it could be expanded into a short story. And so I started pulling it, and then I got stuck for 2 years on this story. I wrote tons of other stories in the meantime, but
Sure.
this one story, I was just scared to develop the magic system. It just felt like an overwhelming task. And so I was blocked. I felt blocked. And so
here's another bit.
eventually I got ADHD meds. And the first day I took them, I took my laptop and I went to a coffee shop and I finished the story in one sitting. It was amazing.
Go dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another part, though, of that is something else to unlearn from the American education system, at least. And to a lesser degree, a lot of mainstream countries' education systems. And that is the negative view of procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
Often, procrastination is a message from your own brain that there is additional information needed before this task can continue. And that is why whenever you think about it, all of a sudden, you need to go do something else. And it's because the back of your brain is still working on this thought. It's still trying to understand it, comprehend it, and gain more info. But it knows, it's recognized, at least even if you haven't consciously, that there is additional resources needed. And so now is not the time. So whenever you find yourself procrastinating, don't be upset about it. Often this is part of the process to successful creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Procrastination is not a bad thing.
Sometimes procrastination led to my best work, especially in like middle school. Yeah.
And it's important to realize what it looks like for you when you're procrastinating and when you're being lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am one of those people that,
and again, lazy's not a bad thing. Let's not give
no. I'm just saying, like, we often classify our procrastination as it's just laziness. And no, there are certain games that I own that I know will distract my conscious mind just enough, that I can mull over the problem in the background. And I have learned when I'm in that very mode, I just need to load one of those games up. I need to distract or do something. I need to knit. I need to do something that distracts my conscious brain just enough that the rest of me can work on the problem. And whereas when I just don't feel like working, there's no silver bullet that I can load that will make me suddenly feel like working. It isn't going to happen.
And lazing is more of just actual physical and mental exhaustion.
Yeah.
Versus procrastination is a creative road bump because not all the resources are there at the time.
Or your brain is trying to reorganize a lot of thoughts into something coherent. One of the things I used to notice about my procrastination is a particular flavor of my personal procrastination that I started noticing when I was in middle school and I had to start writing papers was the insatiable urge to reorganize my closet. Or even just to reorganize everything on the top of my dresser. Like every time I thought about this paper, I had to I felt physically magnetically drawn to the top, and Tom has watched this. I'm like, Glory, you said you were tired and you're going to bed. Yes, but I have to reorganize my dresser top. And he's like, it was already, what are you doing? Like, I don't know, it just needs to be done. But like in reality, my brain is trying to reorganize things. And this is a physical way of stimulating that. as well as stimulating enough dopamine release at the same time so that my brain can do the thing it needs. So that when I'm feeling that way, I know, my body needs more dopamine and it needs me to essentially mimic the organizing thoughts as it, in the back of my brain, organizes these kind of jumbled up thoughts. And see, Jenna says, as one of my students says, my grandma baked, my mom quilts, I do Minecraft when I need to percolate. Exactly. Gotta percolate the thoughts.
And
So
finding those things that assist with that is really important. And one of the best ways to get through your blocks is when you can find that thing that distracts you just enough. Just enough, not too much, but just enough so that your brain can actually do the things that the brain need to do.
What are you going to say, Laura?
So, one of the places that I get the most percolation done in my brain is my bed. It is comfy.
Oh, yeah.
And so I actually vlogged that process in my Lovecraft story. So I'd lay in bed, I'd have an idea, I'd turn the camera on, sit up, and just spout my idea, turn the camera off, lay back down, think for another couple minutes, and sit back up, turn the camera on, just spout my idea. And just, I love my bed because it's where I'm in between dreams and reality. And so it's where more creative thinking can be done for me.
And also it kind of goes with, CV was saying, like, a lot of her best ideas come from when she's in the bath. And part of that is your anxiety gets turned off when you're in the bath or in bed because you're in a safe location.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else is coming in to disturb your space. You have sort of primed yourself that this is you are now sequestered from the rest of the world in this area. And so that's another part, is being able to turn off the anxiety. And being in locations and in positions and such that you are secure is another aspect that helps with not the block, but the exhaustion and the uncertainty of, this is why people have these weird processes they do. It's because you got to tell your subconscious, and it doesn't understand words. You can't talk to it, but you can show it, you can sing to it, you can feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And also, daydreaming is just fun.
It really is.
It's like, where can you daydream?
It's a meditation skill that we do not teach and do not prize like we should.
I mean, one of the places that I daydream, but also that is part of my meditative practice, is baking. That is where I truly do meditate, but I also allow myself to daydream. And that is where a lot of the creative organizing happens, because I have to read a recipe, even if it's a recipe I just wrote based on research. I'm still then following it, even if I then change it as I'm doing it, of like, no, this needs a little more. But nevertheless, like, that is where my meditative practice is. Other people, like, and I literally realized this 2 decades ago. I was reading a small little book. I can't remember his name, but it's a Buddhist monk was talking about walking meditation. And he was describing the experience and how other people described the experience to him about their experiences as walking meditation. And I realized, that is what I experience when I bake. That you can meditate and be productive. But it's not a kind of productivity like, I have a deadline and I have to do this. Oh no, the ticking clock. Oh no. It's more of la la la, making things, feeling productive, having my thoughts. So it's not meditative for me if people are coming in and out of my kitchen. If people are calling me and want to talk while I'm doing, I'm uninterrupted in my own little world. And at the end of that experience, I then have something delicious to present to others or to enjoy, or at least to take pictures of as trophies. Um, look, no animals were harmed in the baking of my bread, okay? It's my trophy.
So I love when I have a deadline that's not my own deadline to meet, because like all these anthologies and stuff have deadlines, and so I have something to aim for, and if I don't make it, I'm not going to be able to submit. And so it makes my brain try and prioritize what story to work on next, because I will have like 10 anthologies I want to submit to in the next 2 or 3 months. And so I will order the stories, and it will help things move along, because
Yeah, my mother was
there's a
similar.
deadline.
She loved deadlines. I for me, deadlines are kind of a creativity killer.
Yeah, same.
But for my mother, create the deadline, even in a manufacturer, so she used to make me, as her editor, give her deadlines that were absolute works of fiction. And she absolutely loved it when I would like remind her the day before her deadline, it's your deadline. And she's like, oh God. And I'm like, do you need an extension? She's like, don't say that to me. Let me enjoy the adrenaline. Like, okay.
But see, this is where it's really important to understand how your brain works,
You've
how
got
your
to figure
mind
yourself
works.
out.
Because I worked on deadline for a while, and it was torture, because it was nothing for me. It was the experience of nothing but anxiety of what if I don't have it done on time? What if I don't have it done on time? I'm the white rabbit who just runs around constantly in my head screaming, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. Oh my goodness, I'm late. And even if I'm not, that's just who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were talking earlier about doing this as a meditation, or having it as a meditation, there actually is a formal school of meditation where you sit and you focus on your breath, like most mindfulness meditation does, to the point where you find yourself becoming focused, and then you let go. You just let your mind do whatever it wants to do, but you don't. You follow the rabbit wherever the rabbit goes. You follow it, but you don't hold on to anything. You just let it go. Just let it stream past, and then you pull it back in. Follow your breath again. Get focused again, and then let go and see what happens in your mind. It's a form of insight meditation that is there to do exactly that, to grant you insight. You're going back and forth in the cycle between extreme focus and just rambling thoughts that just spew out of you because your brain goes, wait, I can think again? Yay! And you can have some of your most amazing insights that way.
Sure.
And as somebody who kind of beat the ability to daydream out of themselves, because I've been a bad person to myself most of my life for so many reasons. Some of you know my backstory. You understand where all those reasons. This is how I learned to daydream again, is through this very formal insight practice, that now I can just daydream. I don't have to sit down and do the formal breathing and everything to get into that state anymore. But I had literally kind of beaten that ability to just sit and daydream with my thoughts out of me, because it was all about productivity. It all had to be about getting the work done. And any of those frivolous, big scare quotes on that, frivolous activities could not be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that state, because I know I got myself there, you can revive this ability. It is, as they say, like riding a bike. You can get back on. And insight meditation is a great way to do it. It's very simple. Just breathe to a count of 10, focusing on your breath, trying to stay as focused as you can on it and not allowing any thoughts in. Do that to a count of 10 breaths, where 1 is when you breathe in, 2 is where you breathe out. And when you get to 10, just let your mind go. Just release that control and see what happens. And you'll be amazed when you tell your brain, because what you're doing in this is you're giving your brain permission, run wild now. And through that, you're getting back in touch to that thing that you used to do when you were a kid, where your brain could just run wild and have all of the fanciful ideas.
Yes.
because this is the problem with our modern concept of adulting, is what we have decided to define an adult as is somebody who does not act childish. And the way we define childish is someone who is imaginative.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we literally have a friend who is having a fight with her kid's teacher because the teacher is upset because her kid has an imaginary friend. Her kid is like 6 years old. This is normal.
That is absolutely appropriate for a 6-year-old to have an imaginary friend. And in fact, a really good sign. Like, it's a good thing to be that age and have an it's actually a good age it's a good sign to be any age, quite frankly, and have an imaginary friend.
But yeah, she's active. Her kid's kindergarten teacher is actively trying to get her to get the kid into therapy because don't you understand your kid's playing with somebody who's not there?
Like, I'm going to go and say it. Your friend needs to request a different teacher.
Oh, yeah.
That teacher is toxic as well as possibly poorly educated.
Well, this is the Richard Dawkins thing. Imagination is bad.
Kindergarten teacher who doesn't want children to have imaginary friends is a toxic person who, frankly, doesn't need to be around children.
She has also found out that she has told some of the other students' parents that she caught their kids talking to their dolls. And this is obviously a sign that they have problems. Like, this teacher has like bit this idea that having an imagination of any stripe is bad. And this is something that has been pushed for years. I mean, this is Richard Dawkins' whole thing. He has been advocating in Britain to have giving your children fantasy books classified as child abuse. Because imagination is bad. If we should just foster a logical brain.
That's literally not how human brains work.
I know.
That is literally not how they are wired. And that's probably a good thing because I don't know if y'all noticed, but we're the ones in charge of this planet. Not the turtles, not the little rapist otters. It's us. And it may be partly because we have thumbs, but partly because we have this creativity that, as well as we're very thirsty as a species. And I don't mean water. And so that has allowed us to creatively solve problems. But the way we creatively solve problems is we like encourage creative imaginary thought in children so that you can grow up and think creative imaginary thoughts about, let me imagine we solve the problem. Now, what would be the solution? What would have, like, in my imagination, if I solved this problem? Oh, if only we could do that. And then somebody's like, oh, well, we can if we just go pull this flange from this other tool. Like, we could then use it here. That is literally how problem solving works.
There's a wonderful line in The Myth of Disenchantment where he says that one of the main problems in modern culture is an imagination deficit, that we have so underestimated the value of human imagination and creativity that we see the problems just mounting up because we will not apply the one tool we have to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest aggravations I have now that I'm older and, thanks to the world of the internet opens up, I can get access to so many, published scientific literature.
Mm-hmm.
Is you can directly see how creative or lack of creativity the researchers had in their original idea and what they have supposed from the data that they obtained about this subject. And what did they account for and what did they entirely not account for and not think it was even related? And like, there is part of the real secret of why America is one of the leaders in scientific research. And it's because of the expats we have who by their nature are going to be neurodivergent. That's why you leave the country of the people you were born into. And they think differently, and they think creatively. And the places where you don't see a lot of scientific research coming out of, or you see very faulty, is where the creativity is not allowed much. Like, that's where China has so much trouble, and why it's like just a national pastime of China's to take and steal American IP and research, because they're not coming up with it on their own, because China has spent the last 80 years beating creativity out of all of the citizenry. Well, if you don't have a creative thought, how can you think outside the box that got you here?
It's the thing that really concerns me with the whole STEM versus STEAM.
Yes.
I have real issues as an educator with STEM of why are you all doing STEM when all of you should be doing STEAM? I know so many talented scientists who, as their hobby, have some sort of creative art. And anytime you ask, so how do you come up with these amazing and innovative research, and you've made all these inroads? Come to find out, every one of them, including everybody who's got a Nobel Prize, has some little art project off to the side that they look forward to working on anytime they have free time. And it's because they have these little creative art projects, and maybe not so little. Sometimes they're enormous creative art projects, sometimes in the woods, that help fuel their logical reasoning thoughts at their vocation. You need both. That's how humans work. We need all of the above, not just one thing or the other.
And always remember that general and special relativity came about because Einstein was a bored patent clerk who sat at his desk daydreaming and started thinking about, if I was trapped in an elevator, would I know that I was on a planet or moving through space? How could I tell the difference? And this bored daydream gave us modern science. Like, all of modern science spills out of this bored patent clerk sitting at his desk going, if I couldn't see outside, how would I tell the difference between sitting still in gravity and moving at a constant acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared? How would I be able to tell the difference? And this spiraled out through several other he called them his mind demons, which I think is just ever so cute.
Look, if Maxwell can have them, he can have them too. That's right,
Maxwell's demon.
And this spiraled out into both general and special relativity.
And damn it, if they aren't actually creating Maxwell's demon.
I know. What?
Oh, that hurts in a deep scientific way.
Why we live in this world. Okay, so anyway. But again, creative thought is very valuable and important. And again, it's why we have set aside this entire episode to talk about it. And to talk about how to cultivate your creative thought, and then what to do when it runs dry. Because I'm sorry to say, in the dystopia we currently live in, more than likely, most creative people will experience a point in their life where it feels like the well has run dry, and they're like, will it ever come back? And the answer is, okay, first off, calm, breathe, and then cast your mind back to this moment when you watched this podcast, and remember all the tips and tricks, which we will talk about when we come
next
back
hour.
From our little sprinty sprint. You can use this little sprinty sprint for anything you want. Maybe it's snack time. Maybe it's walk around and putter around the house. I absolutely like y'all. I advocate puttering. Putter. Just putter around your house looking for, like, what's out of place? And then, I'll go put that away. And then while I'm here, maybe I'll get a snack. And then while I'm here, I will then go put this, and then I bring you back to the show. And then we talk about more tips. You'll have a wonderful time. Oh, look, right before the sprint, we've summoned a wild Maggie. Woohoo!
Guys, how are you?
So with that,
I got to enjoy. I'm glad you're about to go to a sprint, because just as I was about to pop on and join one of my favorite discussions, how to avoid burnout,
right?
I decided it needed to dump my 24 ounces of hot tea onto my desk.
Oh dear. Well, while Maggie deals with that very important crisis, we will see y'all back in just a few minutes. Beepity beep. Beepity 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 beep. Beepity beep. Beepity 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 beep. I'm back. I made
just
myself
found
a
an
coffee.
artist on Fiverr
Yeah?
because I want to commission art of my vampires.
Of course.
Who doesn't want to commission art of their vampires?
Right? I mean,
But like,
Dirty, raunchy art of their vampires.
you shush.
yes, Maggie. I too made myself a
A
big
very
old
large
cafe
glass.
au lait.
I made coffee too. It's the coffee club.
Coffee club.
I'm actually having ginger tea with honey from my beehives.
Oh, the flex, Maggie.
I am flexing. My honey tastes like wildflowers were made into sugar.
Mm.
I'm having a full-on Bob's Burgers thing with like, are we going to get to see the hives?
Mm. I keep trying to convince Maggie to make me some videos, but she haven't succeeded.
My internet won't reach out to my beehives. And it's too cold today for me to open my hives. My bees do not, it's too cold. They promised us 60 degrees today, and we haven't broke 50 yet.
The Halloween special for Bob's Burgers. He takes the kids out to a Celtic apple farm, and all he cares about is seeing the beehives because they have their own bees. And so every time I think of them and think of you, I just hear Bob in the back of my head. Are we going to get to see the hives?
When do we see the bees? Yeah.
Show me your hives.
No, I just I was reading a thing a friend sent me about an HOA in their area. They didn't have an HOA 20 years ago. Now they have an HOA. And
Karens take power.
And all the Karens. And so they have beehives. They're in a state where I won't go into the details, but where they register their beehives with the state as an apiary, and they have 5 beehives. And one of the Karens killed all 5 of their hives.
What?
Killed, yes. Came in, sprayed the hives, said they were in violation because they had illegal livestock. Oh no, it gets so much better.
There are people in Philadelphia that have donkeys in their apartment, and she's upset about beehives.
She's upset about beehives. So no. So now it gets better. They go to the HOA. The HOA threatens to fine them until they drag in someone from the ag department that fines the HOA and said Karen $10,000 per hive.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
No. It gets even better. They agreed to pay $1 per lost one. They didn't clarify hive. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll give you $1 each. 50,000 bees per hive times 5 hives.
Yes.
They settled for 10%, so they settled for $25,000 to replace their hives. But the HOA and said Karen still had to pay the state agriculture department for killing endangered animals.
I was about to say, with all of the colony collapse, that has to be a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is they had never been warned or notified, you need to move your hives. We don't want the hives here anymore. No, nothing. It was, yeah. It was
just an
glorious.
HOA power trip.
Yeah, and there's of course there's a non-disclosure on it, and the only thing we know about it is from what the beehive owner's sister told someone in their beekeeping group that then got shared into all of the other beekeeping groups. It is check with your HOA, make sure your bees are still okay, so Karen doesn't come and kill all your hives.
I just like to offer a little PSA that all HOAs are racist and bigoted.
Oh no, there's one
Don't
lawsuit
feed them.
that's going on right now that okay, so when the houses were put in, they were set further back from the road on the lots, and now the new HOA has decided they only want the houses to be 35 feet from the street. So there's like a third of the houses that have to be moved forward 10 feet. These houses have been there for 2 decades. They can't just move them. The HOA literally wants them to tear down their house and rebuild a new house closer to the street, so all of the houses are a uniform distance from the street.
Little boxes on the hillside. Little boxes made of ticky-tacky. Little boxes on the hillside. Little boxes all the same.
No, but no. And I'm like, I keep getting sucked into these beekeepers versus HOA threads, and I'm like, no, I have to write my nano. I have to work on my nano. Ooh. And what happened there? Like the lady who had the beehives, who ran out, ripped the top off her beehive when they were trying to carry it away, pulled out one of the frames and smacked the 2 guys carrying the beehive off. She was charged with assault with a deadly weapon because she hit them with a frame of honey. And the bees then attacked the HOA vice president and their gardener.
Show me your
kitty.
Yes.
Show me your kitty. Show me your kitty.
Here's
Someone's getting their winter coat.
Ah.
Yep. Look.
Yes.
Princess is
Look at these flukes.
Princess is back. I'm cat sitting. Our friend who took her had to go out of state to visit her daughter who had major surgery, and so we are kitten sitting.
Nice. All hail the feline overlords.
Hey, cats are the cure for zombieism. In my story, there is in cat saliva, there is an amino acid and protein enzyme combination in cat saliva that kills the zombie fungalism infection. So you have to be
brain parasite fight off the other brain parasite.
Yep, you have to have a multiple kitties to survive the zombie apocalypse.
Oh God, that is like literally like, yes, please. Where do
that
I
is some straight up cat lady, fantasy right there.
That is cat lady propaganda, and I am here for it.
Hey, how I became a crazy cat lady, rough draft for accountability, is now on Inkit.
Oh, what a beautiful face. You know I have a weakness for tabbies.
Yes. And his mother was a ragdoll, so he is super silky.
Oh, he looks it too. He looks so just pettable. Want one?
Yeah, the little girl and that comes over that I watch sometimes. She's like, my hands melt when I pet him.
Oh, look at that face. So beautiful.
So, Laura, you could take that in a completely different direction and write a really fun horror.
Oh, there. When you pet the cat, your hands melt. Oh, no. What is happening?
Like, there's your Gingy Ito story right there.
Mm-hmm. And melting cats.
Yeah.
Cat hair has little barbs on it, so you pet the cat, the barb gets stuck in your skin, wake up in the morning, you're a cat too.
I would gladly.
But is that really a
Different-
horror, or is that a cat lady fantasy?
Yeah, it's
Hey,
a
don't call me
different.
out like that, Tom.
It's
Hey,
like
hey,
a
the
different
question is-
version of metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You have to be very careful being turned into a cat because you want to make sure you have a cat lady and not a cat hater
Mm,
True.
as your person.
that's right. I need to find a cat dad first before I metamorphose. Weird cats. Oh, look at that cutie patootie.
Well, I see the Tinder profile now. Cat Daddy wanted.
Yup.
Yeah, sounds all right.
So, cats prevent burnout. Petting
Lot of
cats
story.
lowers your blood pressure.
Laura's story called Taming the Cat Hater.
Oh gosh.
I mean, we've already watched that anime.
Yep. What is it? My roommate is
Is
my
a cat.
roommate sits on my head.
No, it's just my roommate is a cat. Is the American.
Oh, I think the
Japanese title though, yeah.
Yeah, the Japanese, literal translation is "My roommate sits on my head."
I did a flash fiction on Natalie Locke's Flash Fiction Live one Saturday, and it was this girl who saved a cat in the forest that's around Mount Fuji, and it turned out that it was one of the Ninjato demon cats. And so now she has a demon cat shifter as her boyfriend, but here's the click. He's making her look like a serial killer because she has this strong bond with bad juju, like all of these evil people like come after her. They don't understand why they do it. They just do it. And
I thought
she's
he was
just like,
offering the dead corpses that he had killed. Like, here, look what I did.
basically, the story, she wakes up in the morning next to some guy she met at a bar. Turns out he's a serial killer. Not anymore. And she's like looking at the cat on the end of the bed, and she's like, "You gotta quit killing my one night stands."
It's like, make me.
You're only a human when there's an eclipse of the moon, and a girl's got needs besides having her toes licked. And it just gets weirder from there.
Sounds
This is
pretty
what
good.
happens when you write flash fiction after being awake for 40 hours.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
So, creativity.
And the lack thereof
Yo.
on a special episode.
On a very special episode.
I think Maggie is actually showing one of my
Yeah.
favorite ways to refill my creative well.
Pet cat.
Because I love my dog, but my cats are the most creative critters on the face of the earth. I don't know how and why they do the things that they do. Minerva has recently decided that her life's calling is to be Sonic the Hedgehog. And I do not understand this, but when she wants to get into a closed room, will run at the door as fast as she can, jump in the air, ball herself up, and smack into it. Because, again, I think she thinks she's Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know. But I can't imagine a much more creative thing to do with yourself. Like, I would have done that as a child. It makes sense. And also watching them hunt flies, because we're having a really weird fly epidemic here. Like, they're everywhere. They just, like, blew in on the wind. And just house flies everywhere.
Oh, they came from Colorado.
The ground is
It got
wet.
too cold. It got too cold here, so all the flies went to warmer climes.
When the ground somewhere within a quarter mile of you is very damp, they can lay eggs. And then when the ground gets damp, the eggs hatch, and suddenly you've got house flies that seem like they're just coming up from the ground, because they are.
That makes sense.
Especially where there's woods, because the ground right around trees is very conducive to holding fly eggs.
While I know that cats are not related to velociraptors, I know that whoever animated the velociraptor hunting scenes in Jurassic Park had cats. because watching all three cats form a pack to hunt the one fly that they have all set their eyes on, where the one cat will distract it while the other two cats move in to get it. It's a thing of beauty.
Here's the thing: cats and chickens hunt very similarly,
and
so
very-
I am totally for that.
They do hunt
Because
very
I honestly, my family calls my chickens my velociraptors.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are.
They are dinosaurs.
And they are the same size as velociraptors, so, I mean,
Yep.
there's not much difference between them. Hence, I love that little joke image of we only know their skeletal structure. We don't know that much about how their fat and feathers were. So look at a penguin and then look at a Brachiosaurus. Here's a possible image of a of a bird-eyed Brachiosaurus,
Right?
Oh,
versus the what do you call the small little birds? Not chickadees, like chubbies.
Finches?
No, the ones you get in like stores. But yeah, I mean,
budgies.
Parakeets.
No, what was it, Glory?
Budgie parakeets.
Budgies. Yeah, the budgies. And someone,
it is a type of parakeet.
and someone budgified a T-Rex.
Yeah, that actually looked very real. Like, I'm like, yeah, I can believe that.
Fear the
Also,
T-Rex.
We know how vain birds really are. So why wouldn't dinosaurs also be that vain? They very much, I mean, like, we now know that birds that get tagged with the little bracelet around their ankle are far more likely to breed than those who don't get tagged. And the reason why is, but yes, because other birds are attracted to their little birdie bracelets and are more likely to find them as attractive mates. So again, birds are into like bling, into being pretty. So I can only imagine that dinosaurs were also very vain little creatures, like drag queens. And just imagine lots of, dinosaur drag queens prancing around. That's what I assume that it used to be like.
That's what my
would dinosaurs do what some South American cockatiel species do and actually like pull fronds off of like plants and tuck them in their feathers
to make themselves look more pretty. Yeah.
And look, and I know no one asked this, but in the quick ADHD neurodivergent fact, that level of vanity is the current answer scientists have for why 90% of birds the males do not have anything that leaves their body to help in procreation. It's just, when you rub your butt against mine.
Yeah, they just sort of scissor.
Because they're so vain, they're only picking for who's the cutest, not who's has any genitalia.
Yeah.
So birds just don't have it. And it's like, it does make you wonder about dinosaurs, since they didn't have any kind of bones down there. Are they just built just like the modern avian dinosaurs?
Just scissoring. They're just rubbing.
Because they are vain.
It's like if you knew all the times I ordered like 100 pullets and ended up with roosters in with my pullets, and I'm like, somebody at the hatchery didn't know how to peek through the keyhole.
Yep.
Yes, I stopped petting you. I'm getting a drink. Don't claw me.
I didn't think you can stop.
See this right here? It's all relaxed, but as soon as I stopped petting him, he went like,
Listen, human.
Look at that. Little psycho.
Obey me, human. Give me the loves.
I'm a good human slave. They got their wet food on their individual plates this morning.
Tom's been doing a good job with a little bit outside. He's been training her to enjoy petting. So she let me pet her the other night, and I hadn't even fed her yet. And then she was like, "Get me the good stuff." She is a big fan of the smoked meats as well.
I was about to say she knows the smoked meats exist. She will
Yes.
be very compliant.
Oh, she the other day I went outside and she was already waiting for me there, so I went and got a slice of smoked roast pork loin. And her little boyfriend, Tripod, was waiting in the bushes. I could hear him, and I'm like, oh, hey. So I pulled off a little piece and threw it in his general direction because he's very shy. And he took one step out closer to the roast, to the smoked pork, and she ran over there like, no, all of it is mine. You will eat what I say you can eat. And she went back to me of like, no more. Yes. So she pretty much wouldn't let me throw any toward him until I had given her almost the entire, what was that? Like a 5-ounce slice of smoked pork loin. So it was a pretty big slice. So yeah, then she was like, I guess you could have one piece. So anyhow, creativity. What is it, Tom, that you wish to?
Well, I mean, let's talk about, sort of the elephant in the room of writer's block, which is, so what causes actual writer's block?
Okay.
And the answers in the end are kind of what you think what you would eventually come to, which is it's trauma, like we saw with CB and, her grandmother passing.
Mm-hmm.
It's fear. It's major anxiety. And that's where that confusion comes in about, am I procrastinating or is this writer's block? Is if you try to write about a subject that you have personal trauma with, you may suddenly find yourself with writer's block where your brain just like, nope, I don't want to process that. And it will do everything it can to avoid that subject. And also, as you were pointing out when we were on break, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yep, I'm literally trying to pull it up so that we can have a visual for this. Okay, I got one. I got it off of Wikipedia. Okay. Hello and welcome to another thing I have a degree in. Okay, here we are, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, you have to address the first 3 layers before you can have a hope of feeling safe enough to be creative. But the reason I know this is because this is also true of if you wish to learn something, like me teaching little children or not so little people, of you have to address their physiological needs. Like literally, you need to be fed. You need water and food that is both safe to consume, that will not make you sick. You need to be able to sleep somewhere you feel safe and that you are not accosted or in danger of being harmed or bitten by rats or bugs. You need all of these things. You also need to feel loved. When I was in the education program, they actually went over this of how do you love children in a way, the students, where they feel love, but it's not verging on creepy town. So how do you love them in a non-toxic manner? And yes, Jenna says, lesson planning for teachers who care 101. Maslow's first, Bloom's taxonomy later. Absolutely. That's exactly it. So because we cannot expect learners to learn when they do not feel like they belong and are loved, it matters that all human beings feel like they have a place where they belong, and where they belong, that people love them there.
Because that's also the extension of safety.
Right?
There is immediate safety, and then there's the safety of the group.
It's like
and
a
if
secondary.
you are, huh?
It's a secondary form of safety.
Yeah. And so if you are around others and you do not feel like you are part of their group, you can't really feel that safe still. Versus Maggie's, I'll just be a few miles away from everyone. I don't need to worry about the rest of the group. I got all my animals. They are my group. They will defend me.
Do you know how much I want to drive to Colorado and be like, come get in my car, let's go back to Mississippi? So that is what in education we learn of. No learning can happen as long as any of the first 3 lowest levels of Maslow's hierarchy needs have not been adequately addressed. I personally think that is also true of anyone trying to do something creative, whether we're talking about creative problem solving or we're talking about, say, something like a creative art, such as writing or sculptures or music, anything. You need the first 3 levels of Maslow's hierarchy needs. And then ideally, as a creative person or as a learner, same difference, you also then need to address esteem, i.e., I feel appreciated by my group. Not only do I belong, but they respect me and I respect them. So you need esteem, and then cognitive. So when we're talking about cognitive, we are talking about feeling psychologically, mentally challenged. And I don't mean in a toxic way. I mean there's always something new to learn, or there's something new and fun and exciting to explore, i.e., I feel mentally stimulated.
And this is where imposter syndrome rolls over so many authors, because they have their physical needs met. They know they're in a safe space. They've got friends and families and even an AuthorTube support group around them. But they end up with that, am I good enough? Can I do this? Am I smart enough? And what do I write? How do I write? Where does this come from? Why can't I write like so-and-so? Why can't I produce YouTube AuthorTube content like this other person? Why, and that is the next 3, the esteem, the cognitive, and the aesthetic. That is where a lot of AuthorTubers and young and writers and even established authors struggle, because that all will put on the cloak of imposter syndrome, and they'll be stuck there, and that will cause a huge amount of writer's block, because they're not writing like this author, they're not selling like that author, they're not producing content like author number C.
But again, a supportive, constructive group of people who understand your creativity. They're not necessarily creating the same way, but we're still talking about peers. That is supportive can be very useful, because you've got people of similar note. I know, what a gorgeous kitty. You've got people of similar note reminding you when you have those dark demons saying those ugly tapes to you of that is not accurate, or why are you comparing yourself? It's like comparing apples and pigs. That's not the same thing. And like to help you see the truth. Also, just again, I do want service announcement. If you are struggling with imposter syndrome, it is a sign that you have childhood trauma. Also, it is a sign that you are in the sweet spot in the Dunning-Kruger effect, which means you are probably at your most competent. So let it just acknowledge, that is what imposter syndrome sounds like in my head. And then acknowledge it as white noise and just allow it to go to the back as like just sort of a background noise in the back of your brain, because it's not something you actually need to do anything about. It's just a combination of your childhood trauma and your competency making this very strange white noise in the back of your head. That is what imposter syndrome is.
Incompetent people do not get imposter syndrome.
No, they don't.
Blows my mind.
So know that if you are experiencing imposter syndrome, congratulations, you have achieved a level of competency, and we are all proud of you.
And
I mean that.
And this hierarchy of needs is one of the reasons why you need to learn what it is that helps you get through a lot of this. You'll notice when I'm having a lot of creative issues, or when I'm having a particular dark mood, I talk a lot about the languages I'm learning. I talk a lot about wanting to conlang again. And it's because when I had my first major depressive episode, one of my teachers noticed and wanted to intervene and introduced me to learning how to read Old and Middle English, introduced me to all of the language work that Tolkien did because he saw that it was something that I was interested in. And so in my brain, language work is a safe space. It is a place where I am comfortable, where I am good, whether I'm doing it alone or in a community of people, I feel that security that I can't find other places. And you probably have little things like that as well, which is why some of us probably gravitate towards baking. That was a place that we found safe, or knitting, or I love to sew when I really have in a dark place because I used to sit with my grandmother and we would work on her quilts and I would help do the embroidery on the actual patches and she would quilt them together. And that's a place where that those psychological needs, that feeling of belonging and love and safety were so strong for me. And so those sense memories come back when I participate in those activities. And again, even if I am alone, I feel that sense of belonging. I feel those connections. I feel that sense of safety. And I get that sense of well being that helps me recharge and move forward. So, thinking back to those times in your life when you were doing something with someone and you felt safe, that's a good question to ask yourself to try to find those things to help you recharge and to find those things that work for you. It's why a lot of 80s cartoons work really well for me because they bring right up those memories of my friends having sleepovers and getting up early to watch those Saturday morning cartoons and all of those senses of belonging and safety and those psychological needs being met and all of that all come together. And I'm able to tap into that as an adult and be able to have that well-filling that I need.
Speaking of problems with, those the negative tapes in your head, here is the positive tape you can replace them with. And you also should just use in your regular life, which I thought CB actually pointed out well, which was, and this one is talking about, to talk to kids, but you can also just talk to yourself this way. Tell them they made a good effort. Even though they might be mistakes, they say things like, how we can make this better, and guide them to the right, spellings or answers. A soft answer turneth away wrath. So often we have these tapes where we essentially are imitating our own parents or the people in authority, and they're always just so angry versus, okay, this is where I am. I'm not liking it all. How can I, but it can still be made better. That's cool. And, and then reward. Most important part is to keep them engaged. Keep yourself engaged. Sure, you're an adult, but it doesn't mean you don't need little bits of encouragement and rewards, including for yourself.
Yes.
Ice cream, baked goodies, games, activities are all great ways to motivate yourself. There's nothing wrong with them. And Jenna pointed out, from the school side, it's part of the reason why any school can easily justify a better school break and lunch program, and why some of the best schools, it's let kids do recess-like activities all the way through high school. Because again, they need that time off.
And they need that play.
To process.
And they need to be able to connect with their classmates in a non-competitive way, such as with recess, with breaks, so that they can, again, form that esteem group through an authentic manner rather than, oh, you're now all assigned to be in the same group. And guess what? You're probably not going to get along. Exactly, CB. Kids learn the most when they have fun. So do adults. Like, nothing changes about human psychology between childhood and adulthood. We all learn best when we're having fun.
And also, with everything going on right now, I feel like I need to do my regular PSA because so many of the groups that I'm involved with, people are having what's called compassion fatigue, where they feel that they have so much to worry about. And we don't realize that a lot of the issues that we have are systemic issues, and that we cannot really individually do much of anything other than lend our voice and whatever we can to various causes that can bring about that systemic change. And I know a lot of people right now that are having creative blocks because they're just so worried about the environment. It's been so dry, like they're watching the Mississippi dry out, or I know people that are just locked in this place where they can't stop refreshing news about Ukraine, or some of the great tragedies that are going on in the world. You are not responsible for fixing the world. All you're responsible for is the little bit of space around you. What is media? What can you reach out and touch? That's the space that you have access to. That's where you can make the most change. If you're finding yourself just constantly worrying about things that are happening, you may need to take a news fast. You may need to just detach for a little bit. And it does not make you a bad person not to know what's going on in the news. It does not make you a bad person to say, I can't cope with all of the bad news coming out about this, that, or the other subject. That is
And
not
it's
a moral
okay.
failing at all.
It's okay to take a break from social media, to step back from YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and Facebook and all of the different social medias. It's okay to take a news break, because and psychologists and sociologists are actually encouraging people to do this, because there's so much noise in the world around them that they can't hear themselves and what they need because of everything that's around them.
And on that note, it's important to remember that the algorithms that Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter use are designed to attack your feeling of self-esteem and your feeling of safety to keep you on the platform and continuing to scroll. That's why we invented the term doom scrolling. That is intentionally built into the algorithm. If you are worried, if you are upset, if you're having FOMO, the fear of missing out, you are more likely to keep scrolling and not leave the social network. Those algorithms are specifically trying to hit your self-esteem, to hit your sense of safety, and to make you feel that psychologically you're not doing well enough.
Or even that you don't belong. They are literally trying to make you feel this way, that you are not loved or belong. Like they are hitting you wherever they can so that your eyes stay glued to their platform.
Well,
in
it
the
triggers
hope that
it triggers
will offer more.
It triggers that autonomic response of flight or fight. When you're scrolling and you see things,
or immobilization, actually.
Well, now it's fight, flight, fawn, or freeze.
Yeah, it's fight, flight, or freeze is what.
Yeah.
So, but again, like, be aware that these things will affect your creative output. They will affect your creativity. They'll affect more than that, actually. I mean, they're just going to affect your mental health and even your quality of sleep at night. Because again, I want to point out these Maslow hierarchy of needs. Humans really do need all these things. Okay? What is aesthetic? Aesthetic is like when you watch a sunset and you feel pleased at looking at something beautiful, something pretty, something that looks like you would want to live around it. That is aesthetic. So having beauty in your life as you personally define it. To some people, very domesticated livestock is a thing of beauty to them, whereas to other people, being able to look at nature, and when I mean that, I mean like maybe a walk in the woods, that is something that is aesthetically pleasing to them. So it's unique to individual people, but there is still a need for that. But the truth is, you can't remove any one of these layers and a person be okay. They'll be okay in the sense of they don't stop being, but they will not be okay in that they're fully functional. Satisfying videos. Yes, I do love those. Watching people clean carpets, make realistic cakes, do their nails, make slime, melt crayons, and so on. Those are quite pleasing.
And also why Twitch is so popular. And also Hollywood has known this for the longest time, and everyone we're human. We like looking at pretty things. All actors are prettier than the average, even character actors, even if you don't realize, because you care about them more.
Mm-hmm.
And we like watching Twitch because these people are, for us, pretty. We like seeing them do things.
Mm-hmm.
There are several YouTube channels that I subscribe to just to outsource my emotional outrage on things. And it really does work. Like, I will listen to them complain and yell and be mad about things, or plot and plan, like, how can we make things better? So I don't have to think about it myself. I'll literally just have it on in the background sometimes, just as kind of, so it's being the background noise, not the voice in my head that's having those same thoughts of being mad about the thing.
Well, and having the world being so loud right now, that is another thing that completely can block your creativity, because you can end up with, like, literally on a repeating loop that's called an earworm for a reason. Well, it's not just that music is an earworm now. Now we have news bits and news blurbs that are specifically worded to get caught in your brain and just go around and around and around. And it's like,
I think there's
what is it? Bolero's Reviol. Oh, Charlie, you know this piece of music. It's literally the same set of notes, and all it does is go up, go down, change keys, change volume, change tempo. But it's the same, like, 20 bars of music, just over and over, and that becomes the news.
Isn't that Bolero? It's
I think it's just Bolero.
Bolero. And it gets stuck, and it gets between you and your creativity, because all of this noise starts to become a wall. And and you start internalizing your stress, and you start losing all of your layers, and it's
and it's interrupting your brain's ability to daydream. Because it's, again, acting as intrusive. So you can't just daydream and have your own personal thoughts. Now it's like your thoughts are sponsored by. Okay. So again, I wanted to point out this, it's useful so when people come to me younger, usually it's younger people in their early 20s, late teens, early 20s are the ones who are like, they talk about personal journeys and self-growth, but I don't know where to start. Okay, here we are. This is what I tell them. Print it out, or, draw it out for yourself, and look at this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You cannot become your full true self without addressing everything all the way through aesthetic. So aesthetic, cognitive, esteem, belonging and love, safety, and physiological. You need all of those addressed before you can self-actualize and occasionally have moments of transcendence. So if you wish to go on a journey of self-growth, address these. Find the place you belong. Make sure that you always sleep in a place that you feel safe, if that's possible, if that's within your control. Be sure to, for cognitive stimulation, make sure there's always something new that you're learning, or you're reading about something you're not familiar with. And so on. And aesthetic, make sure that you surround yourself with beauty as much as you can. These things matter.
In Laura's case, horror posters, because those are beautiful to her.
They're beautiful too. They are. They have this certain aesthetic to them. They are lovely.
I've been watching Unholy on repeat because aesthetically, yes.
Same. I gotta go take Roy out for a walk.
Okay.
Have fun.
Good luck on the street, bread, Roy.
Thanks. Bye.
And I just want to say this before
His mama cringes every time I say it.
I just want to say this before we do the bio break, because I know this has become my mantra lately, and I know that we are not as special as we think we are. And since I have to keep saying it to myself, maybe some of you need to start saying it to yourselves too. It is not selfish to take care of your own mental health. It is not selfish. You need to take care of your own mental health. If you are broken down, you are a help to no one. Breaking yourself down because you think you're being a blessing to other people is not healthy. If you need to just back off and say, I'm sorry, I realize everybody else is having problems right now, but I am falling into the darkness and I don't know that I'll ever crawl out of it again. Give me a minute. I need a breath. That is not selfish. You have to take care of you. It's like the corollary to RuPaul's, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anybody else? If you can't take care of yourself, how the hell are you going to take care of anybody else? You have to take care of yourself first. Don't ever think that you're being selfish if you're taking time to make sure that you're okay. Because we need to do that.
We do need it. And in geriatric nursing and senior care, what I did before I decided I needed to work for the post office because it was less stressful. The thing we're always telling people so they don't get caregiver syndrome is take care of yourself. Well, now we're just in this place in the world where our entire society you are divided into two groups of people. You have the narcissist on one side, you have those with caregiver syndrome, the other side, and all the lines are so blurred. And it's okay to step back. It's okay to say, okay, I have to put this project away. I can't do it this month. I can't do it this week. My July camp project about an abused woman who survives an abusive relationship, we ended up with a friend living with us, and I had to put that aside because it was too close to her life and my childhood. And you have to put it aside. And yeah, I had prepped for it and everything, and it had to go away because I couldn't do it. And that's we know you love your words and we know you love your creativity, but if you're in a place where you cannot mentally, emotionally, or physically even move forward with this story, it is okay to put it aside, do some flash fictions, do some non-writing creativity, go for a walk, take up photography, try to learn to crochet left-handed to reset your brain to something you would never be able to do normally. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to take that step back. And, we're 7 days into Nano, 1 week into Nano. And whether you're ahead or behind, it's fine. No one is going to come to your house and take away your pens and paper and say, you didn't finish Nano. You're not at your weekly goal. You're not a real writer. No.
What? The Nano Police will not come?
The Nano Police are not going to come for you.
No, Glory. The Nano HOA is not going to come for you.
Promises were made. I was expecting a visit. An intervention.
I have to say, though, it does feel like there is a Nano HOA out there that is like, how dare you not be making your goals? No,
right? How dare you not even be trying? And I'm like, the only commitment I made is I am now watching videos on writing. Like, that's all I can promise.
Hey,
also,
I held up my end of the commitment. I said I was going to roll my dice on the first. I had no power and no internet, so I just had to make a little vlog video about it. But I rolled my dice and picked my project. So my Nano commitment is already complete.
And also, I know I wouldn't be surprised if this year, if we actually see a lot more people who write more in the second half of Nano than the first half, because at least in the US, it is election time. And it's highly stressful now whenever this time of year comes around, with especially the way the news and everyone runs it.
Especially that, like, election day is not till the 8th.
thought the Nano police showed up when you hit your goals.
Like it has just been like
Did you hit your
white
goal?
knuckling it.
I literally got my ballot, shik, stuck a stamp on it. The next day it was gone. I was not doing this. And I literally, more than watching the weather segment, I have not watched the news since I mailed my ballot.
So on that note,
because
for
it's
anybody-
okay to skip the news. It's okay
Yeah.
to
It's
not
okay.
listen to the noise.
For anybody who needs a break from all of this Sunday, I will be leading the Creation Spirituality Community's Interfaith Worship Experience, and it is dedicated to getting rid of all of our feels about the election. It is going to be an open mic. Anybody is welcome to come, vent your frustrations, vent your feelings, whatever they are, celebrate what you want to celebrate, whatever. We're going to get together and have a moment of public grieving and celebration this weekend, and I'm going to be the moderator for it. We're putting together some readings to help people stay calm and focused, because no matter what happens, no one's going to be 100% satisfied with this election, even in the best possible scenarios.
Sure.
So we're all going to come together for that. You can find out more at cscommunities.org, and trust me, I'm not trying to get you to sign up for anything. It's just I know people need a place to vent, and I know I'm going to be hosting a safe space this weekend that is specifically for that. So anybody who wants to attend, you're welcome to come join us.
Charlie, would you like to put a link during the break in the
Yes, I will
comments
do
for
that.
everybody? Okay. Well, we're going to take a little breaky break, and we'll see y'all back here in a couple minutes, and where we will definitely talk about like more tips and tricks, more actual things, like things that we use to cope. We'll see y'all in a few minutes. Bibbidi-bee. Bibbidi-bibbidi-bibbidi-bee. Bibbidi-boo. Bibbidi-bibbidi-bibbidi-bee.
All of the bibbity beeps.
All the beeps and boops. All right. How did everybody's sprint go?
I continued watching that little hoot video and laughed.
Which one?
Oh, I've been over throughout the day rewatching Little Hoots, who wrote Shakespeare,
Oh, okay.
because I love that she not only goes through the conspiracy theories, but the torrid lives of each of the conspiracy theorists. Because oh my goodness, it's I've never been through a messy divorce, messy relationship so bad that I wanted to prove that a literary giant did not exist. I mean, I feel like that's life goals.
Yeah, that has not happened to me either.
Karen, can you hear me? No. I chopped up and real quick sauteed a slice of onion with a little balsamic vinegar, mixed it with some sour cream and Parmesan and pepper, and made myself some dip.
Yum.
Because cooking and baking is how I deal with imposter syndrome and creative block.
I did notice you, Maggie, and I was like, well, I already made the onion dip. That's in the fridge. And so I may have put ruffled potato chips on my grocery load.
So good.
Charlie has posted a link. Charlie?
Yeah, this Sunday I'm going to be the moderator for what will pretty much be an open mic night. So we're kind of pitching it, but we are going to bring you through. And if there is grief, we are going to process it together. We're going to be working towards a state of active hope, which is not the hope that you think that you can accomplish a thing because you have optimism, but a state of hope where you've realized what it is that you want to do and let that desire to accomplish the thing be your driving force that moves you forward. It's one of the best ways out of darkness and out of stress. And I'm going to be leading that this weekend for anybody who is a little worked up over whatever happens in this election.
Very nice. Thank you. Shakespeare is a Masonic conspiracy theory.
Oh, okay. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but the lady who started the whole thing, she was dating a boy that was half her age in the Victorian era, and then they found out, and it was a scandal because you knew a man, and she's like, okay, it's fine, we're going to get married, and he's like, oh, I don't know, she's just an evil gaslighting woman who took advantage of poor me, we're not getting married. And she's like, wait, what? And then her best friend decided to make it all better by writing a book, a tell-all book that explained how bad the guy was in the whole thing, which then let everybody know all of this poor woman's business. And her reaction was she was reading a sonnet and realized that if you skipped every 16 letters, it spelled her own last name, which was Bacon. And then she was like, wait, no, it's not spelling my name. It's spelling Francis Bacon's name. Francis Bacon must have secretly written Shakespeare. Oh my God, Francis Bacon is Shakespeare. And spent her entire life Dan Browning her way through trying to prove that Francis Bacon was Shakespeare, to the point where she ended up getting put into a mental asylum because she went to Shakespeare's grave with a shovel because she believed if she dug him up, she would find secret codes left there by Francis Bacon, proving that he was, in fact, the real Shakespeare.
Versus my first thought is, wait, Shakespeare was in love with Francis Bacon?
Oh, that I could sooner believe.
Yeah, like that sounds more like Shakespeare.
I like the Doctor Who version of Shakespeare who openly flirts with everybody. Like he just thirsty, y'all. And I'm here for that particular interpretation of Russell T Davies' version of Shakespeare.
And this I'm sharing with you because this is one of my favorite ways to refill my creative well is, oh my goodness, yes, give me all the messy details. Yes, yes. Let's dish. Give me all the dish. Because I don't know if it's because I grew up queer in the 90s or if just because it's a really good way to refill your creativity. But all of the scandal, yes. Honey. Give me all of the scandal.
I know that like that was definitely one of my mother's coping techniques was historical gossip. So what she would read these scandalous historical, like I don't mean they're fiction, they're actually nonfiction type historical novel books about whatever famous figure. But then my mother and I would do whatever, like go walking around a walking track, and she would then relate all the scandal to me, all the salacious gossip about long dead people. And this was our fun, was like, oh my God. And then what? She's like, oh, you would not believe what James II then did. And I'm like, go and tell me while we're walking. Like, we're just gossiping essentially about dead people. And I think this was one of her ways of coping with, stress, but also just how to refill her creativity well.
Yeah, prior to this,
I do want to point out, I really like Jenna's interpretation of a bedroom friend. Like, oh, they're bedroom friends. Like, that's right up there with Barry White time.
Who wasn't bedroom friends with James I?
I know he would like seriously.
Tell me if you were a man.
Like name a man in that time period who wasn't bedroom friends with James I.
Right.
Well, they didn't have electric blankets, so you had to have someone to keep you warm.
You needed a nice big burly man coke to like warm you up, right?
You mean the Queen Victoria excuse?
I was cold.
Oh, don't even get me started on my Queen Victoria conspiracy theories. I got some that are fun and dirty. But prior to this, my obsession was trying to figure out why and how Thirst Trap Lincoln got made. Because if you've not seen the statues of Thirst Trap Lincoln, somebody, I can't remember what it was, introduced me to the statues of Thirst Trap Lincoln, and I was just like, I thought it was you, Gloria. I didn't want to blame you if it wasn't you.
No, you can just go ahead and blame me. If it's like something odd but also sexy in history, and you're like, did Gloria just assume that I did? Because
I couldn't remember if it was me or Glory.
You can just Google Thirst Trap Lincoln, and this statue will come up. Because why does
Glory about it? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you've not seen Abe Lincoln, gay icon?
Why does the statue
It's a Los Angeles building, like it's still there. It's on public display. He's so thirsty. He's from the 1930s.
He's shirtless, y'all. He's shirtless.
His pants are so tight.
So tight.
Which is amazing for a piece of marble. So tight.
They were as tight as who's Victoria's husband?
Prince Albert.
They were as tight as Prince Albert's pants.
So tight to go meet her at a party that he had to stand in his carriage the whole way there while he was driven to Victoria's party to meet her because he knew she liked it tight and he wanted to show his status, and she was very interested in what she saw. And also that's why his pants were white kid leather. He wore white kid leather pants that were so tight he could not sit, so that she could see everything he was packing. And she was like, oh, I would like you to unpack that in my bedroom. And
well, I mean, there was a reason he was the Magic Mike of his generation.
Right? Well, she was like, yes, please. And he was like, yeah, I thought you'd be interested. So tight, y'all. He could not sit, both going to and coming back from the party. That's how tight they were. They were tight like a tight glove, y'all. Like, apparently she could tell his status on circumcised or not.
I cannot think
at a party.
Queen Victoria without that final song from Grease going through my head. Because, I feel like all the men's in her life have been floating into their pants.
There, Charlie gets a point.
I didn't mean to kill Maggie. Welcome
And
to the
this is how
inside of
we
my brain, Maggie. It's fun.
Don't accidentally murder your friends, but almost murder them is fun.
And this is why a social group that you belong with, that you
Yes.
feel belong and safe in, is
Can
part
help.
of a requirement for creativity.
Yes.
Yes.
So what I often tell, because, you know, it's been a rough couple years. What I used to tell Glory when she was having a lot of writer's block,
Mm-hmm.
and she is complaining at me of, no,
No,
it's
you forgot the
over.
over drama. Like I would
My
literally
God,
have
you
hand
could
back of my
drama
hand.
llama it with the best of them.
Where's
Was
my
over.
pink notebook?
I know. This was like I had already all those notebooks were already filled, and I was still like, Tom, I'll never write again. This is it. And it was
And
really
so-
more like I
and
had an
it's-
incredibly toxic job that was like just sucking my very soul out of my body, sip at a time. Anyway,
And
continue.
so what I told Glory at the time
Just
is there is a way to fix this, and I call it finding your cackle. Because, and it's one of those, it's more of it's a symptom of the rest, but it's one of the easiest indicators I know of, which is you haven't found the right solution till it makes you cackle. Not just giggle, not laugh. You have to actually get the writer to, or the creative type, to cackle, is one of the real ways to help people get over a creativity block, because it means you feel truly safe. You are absolutely comfortable. You are not in any trouble in any way, that you can unabashedly just laugh with abandon. And so it's how do you find someone's cackle? And there's many ways. The way I knew, because as we brought up over the course of these shows over the last couple of years, our family growing up watched a lot of movies. That was our intercommunication style, was using movie references. So
yeah, I was the one who didn't watch movies in our family.
and so what I found when I was, you know, just doing my normal thing was Amazon Prime, because anyone can sort of submit to be in their system, unlike Netflix and Paramount and all these, and Hulu and all these other ones, you know, private individuals can submit their movies to be in Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Is you get the weirdest eclectic set of movies on Amazon Prime, and you search any subject and it will start recommending people also watch, if they saw these movies, and you just go down this weird rabbit hole of, they made this movie, all these people got together and they made this movie, and here's the trailer for it, and it's, Glory, I need you to see this trailer, because you talk about the imposter syndrome, the I can't do anything right. I want to show you what other people have already made. And they made it, and they thought it was good enough to put out to the rest of the world. They were not worried about what the rest of the world would think. They were sure of only positive things. And it is one of the ways I have found writers like get a little bit over some of their blocks, is just showing trailers from insane movies. I have no other way to describe it.
You don't even have to go for the insane movies. Look at some of the stuff that's coming out mainstream right now.
The mediocre movies.
And do the writer exercise of, how would I end this scene? How would I end this episode? How would I end this movie?
Mm-hmm.
And that is an incredible exercise to get you out of creative, to help you see. Like, one of the things I do is, if I hit a wall, I jump ahead, write what is past the event that is blocking me, and then come back and fill it in later. Because there's no hard, fast rule that if you don't write it in perfect precise order, 2,000 words before your morning coffee, you're not a real writer. No, it's just, but it is a wonderful exercise, because I mean, some of the stuff that's throwing millions and millions of dollars at,
Yeah.
They got
and the
investment
remakes.
money
What
for
are we?
this.
What are we at? Batman number 208 now? Is that where we're at with Batman?
How many times is Batman's parents gonna die in a Hollywood movie?
Feels like it.
Thousands. Millions.
How long till we finally see the rest of the Bat family as it exists in modern comics?
Right?
Where Batman disappears for a year and they all take over and do the job without him.
Well,
And no
the ones
one's
that really
parents
should
had to be
look
murdered
after
to do it.
well, okay,
didn't
look
help.
at the Marvel multiverse. Is CB here? Hello, CB, if you're here. She's combining all these things with the fandoms and all of this stuff, and it's really so creative, the things that she has done. But if you look at the Marvel universe and now the multiverse, basically one of the longest running comic book franchises, kind of ignore the whole Overlord D thing, has basically said the universe has become a write your own ending, write your own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And all you have to do is look at the Spider-Man No Way Home, and suddenly you see that that this incredibly long-lasting franchise that have canon stuff going back to the 1960s and 50s now has said, be creative. Now, the Overlord D doesn't want anyone to be creative, but that is not stopping the explosion of fan fictions and alternate endings. And those are creative and valid methods to jumpstart your creativity for your own story.
I feel
So,
like I've
another-
actually learned the value of fan fiction because will forever be grateful for Werewolf by Night, because that is my Werewolf by Night fan fiction made into a 1950s B movie. And I can't believe that movie even exists. Like, how that was not mine directly from, like,
The Devil Woman from Mars, which is only available on Netflix in the French translation. If you have not seen it, you must see this movie.
I have, yeah. It's bad. But also this kind of gets to another part of another common cause of writer's block, is the block is yourself. We have, as adults, we grew up being taught how to suppress our emotions and our feelings and our points of view to get along with the mainstream, that we encounter stuff in our stories that we don't want to go the route our instincts want to. And sometimes your brain will just block you then of like, if you don't want to do this solution, then we're not doing any of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's until you accept, well, then let's just explore. Like, you can write an entire story and go, you know what? Everything besides chapter 2 is awful. I'm going to redo the whole thing. No one needs to see this version. Still save it. You never know later on when you might want to use it, or just have fun, let other people see it.
Mm-hmm.
And redo the whole story. There's this view, like, as Maggie was talking about, of writing in order, in sequence, each chapter, and if not, it doesn't count. You can block yourself up. And so the creativity stops coming because you refuse to just let the creativity be itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you have to retrain your creativity with, writing flash fiction, using prompts, finding these little games to, all right, let me take my little bit of creativity to work on someone else's creativity, essentially play the improv game.
Being on a stream with Glory where you're coming up with pitch ideas that makes you end up writing this stupid Vela project that I'm currently doing because it was a dumb pitch that
I regret nothing.
Look, it worked for Byron and Shelley.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those
It
were
worked.
all dumb stories that
Of
they are now
course.
all remembered for.
But dumb is fun.
Well, that's my once and future insight that I've gotten over the last couple of years is why, and I say once in future because I have to keep reminding myself of this. Why do I keep trying to recreate what the mainstream is interested in. All of the things that are legendary are so idiosyncratic and weird.
Mm.
Everything that has lasted, like Dune is around today because a guy was sitting on a beach looking at the literal sand dunes off the coast of Oregon and went, huh, can you imagine an entire civilization down here? And wrote 6 gigantic novels about this, where he poured in all of his ideas about psychedelics and everything else. It's a weird series of books, but they're remembered. George Lucas and his weird obsession with everything Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon gave us Star Wars. These
Don't
things
forget the
that
samurai. Like,
Yeah.
also Kurosawa. Of how can I mix Kurosawa with the Old West?
yeah, all of these things are so idiosyncratic that are around to this day. Even the weird things that Walt Disney was into that we now know about that made him do all the anthropomorphic animals and all the stuff.
Just all the
Embrace
heads he
that.
has that he bought, just frozen heads that Walt Disney paid for.
Embrace your idiosyncratic nature. Do I think that the Santa Closet will one day be remembered as a classic? I don't know. None of the people that have classics today thought that their stuff would be remembered as classic.
No, none
If
of
you
them.
went back and asked Dickens, what are you going to be remembered for? He would say the Penwick Papers.
Yes.
And if you know anything about Dickens, you're like, what is the Penwick Papers?
Oh God, they're just so boring.
Oh no,
Oh
how
my
about
God,
Edgar
they
Allan
drone
Poe?
on. What?
How about Edgar
Yeah.
Allan Poe?
He was a
Oh,
comedic
yeah.
satirist.
Sam Clemens.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was a travel
I
writer.
mean,
Yep.
that was his bread and butter. That was his mainstay, but that's not what everybody remembers.
No. So, yeah, I think ultimately it's when you break out of what you think you ought to be writing or ought to be doing, and instead, what makes you cackle? What makes you cackle with glee? And when I say cackle with glee, I am specifically thinking of the Looney Tunes witch. Anytime she'd cackle and then she'd like
Witch
disappear, and there would just be little hairpins suspended in the air, that level of cackle.
Well, and people need a legitimate laugh. People,
Yes, they do.
we
That glee. Like, she was just
generation
gleeful.
doesn't know how to laugh. You're a
She's like,
generation who
"You
doesn't know how to laugh.
Beautiful. Ew. You know, like she's just absolutely living her best life. Of that level of cackle, whatever makes you cackle, even if it's like you're in the middle of a creative project and it's kind of dragging, and then there's another idea that comes along and it makes you cackle, you know what? Give it a try.
I mean, you can't convince me differently that the entire original premise for Jupiter Ascending wasn't what if
Dorothy.
Dorothy
totally
married her dog?
Smooch Toto. What if Toto was humanoid? And like he really was Dorothy's best friend. Sneechy, sneechy. Like, yeah. I guess we have to go off world for this, but let's do it. Like, okay, I'm here for them. I am here for this wild ride of a story. It is ridiculous. And that bees are attracted to her. I don't care. Just give it to me. It's so off the wall batty.
But
Takes
that's where I think
hoverboard to a whole new level. I am here for all of it.
That's where I think a lot of our, especially our blockages come from, is this idea of legacy and writing something that is literary. I get so worried when I hear people talking about how they want to write literary fiction. And sure, that's great if you're just like inspired by literary writers and you want to write something in that vein, that's fine. I don't have a problem with you in that. But if you're thinking that you are writing the new American canon or the new world canon, you won't know probably in your lifetime if that is true. All the people that are alive today that we think are great and wonderful writers, no one will probably have known about them. When you go back to the actual period when, for example, Shakespeare was alive, he probably would have made people's top 12 lists, maybe their top 10s, but he was nowhere near the top of any of those lists as far as the great playwrights that people were talking about while he was alive.
People were not excited of what's the next play coming out.
it was literally a Shakespearean actor when a lot of morals rules came in England, who was like, hey, why don't we just do these Shakespeare plays that I've already memorized by heart so I don't have to do as much work? Why don't we just do those? And he brought them back into the mainstream and made people remember them. You don't
rewrote
know
them for modern sensibilities.
Yeah, you don't know what is going to make a lasting stand in
Well, you
the
don't know
actual
what's going to
fight.
resonate with people in the future.
Yeah,
Nor
here's
should you be expected to know it will resonate. So if you just write what brings you delight, it might bring future people delight too.
and here just this whole thing that has been preached at AuthorTube for like the last 10 years about writing to market. This, I appreciate that people are doing this, that they are making money now with their clones of 10,000 other books that are basically, I hate to go back to the whole Zane Grey thing where he used the postal maps to simply say he took the same 5 freaking stories, changed the names, shuffled around the drama, and he changed the location to match old postal maps so that there would be the name of the town, the name of roads, the name of landmarks that people knew. But it was the same stories rolled over and over and over into almost 300 books. Did he sell them? Yes. Did people continue to buy them? Yes. But it was the novelty of, oh, look, I know this place. My family's from this place. Oh, look, I visited here. Yes, that landmark is there. I feel so connected to this book. Right now, the romance genre is going off the rails with monsters. Started with werewolves, then we hit the Omegaverse. Now we're doing monsters. Nobody wants to date spider people. I don't know what your kink is. Nobody wants to date a spider person.
I
just
mean,
saying.
It's
like, you know, but they're telling people write the thing, you know, if you write this formula,
strange to its illogical conclusion.
If you write this formula, your books will sell. Yes, your books will sell now. But how many of you can name even the top 5 other Nickel Western writers besides Zane Grey and Louis L'Amour? Can you name, there were over 100 of them, but can you name even 3 others? And the answer is no, because writing to market means you are writing to the here and now, and you are writing what everyone else is writing. And creativity, because you are so trying to nail yourself into the coffin of having what everyone else is writing, that might be why you're blocked, because you shouldn't be trying to write their books. You should be trying to write your books and your story, and Charlie's freaked out Santa in the closet story, and Mary's or Glory's book about all the interesting brownie adventures with their little dog. And Tom, how come I don't have any more chapters of your siblings in the multiverse?
Because he's been working. Honestly, it's because he has been working. He works 6 days a week doing delivery to pay our rent. Like, that's the truth of the matter. Is I hardly even get to spend any time with him, let alone he has any downtime to himself. You know?
Also,
No,
there's
Jenna.
there's some
No.
emotional baggage with continuing that story that I still
We
haven't done.
have, however, Tom and I have discussed writing a rom-com together. We have been inspired by a very mediocre rom-com movie that we watched this
That
week.
I
raccoon,
triple
though. That raccoon.
Is it a
why?
sibling rom-com? I triple dog dare you to put the hot tub story in it.
Oh no!
Oh God!
Not the big hot tub rule.
Oh. Oh.
At all times, there
Shut
may
up
only be
and
one
take
fink
my
in
money.
the room with a hot tub. And never two finks in the same room as a hot tub. This is the fink hot tub rule.
Shut
If
up and
one
take-
fink wishes to enter the hot tub room, another fink must leave first. There may be no crossover of
You
finks.
just sort of you crack the door and you call in.
You must call in without observing. Hello, fink. It is time for you to leave. It is my shift.
And this is why you have writer friends to kick in the door of your creativity and go, "Hey, let's
But
do
I mean,
this
you're not
thing."
wrong, because there is a potential for siblings in this rom-com. That's based on the Jewish season of love that comes around every year in the Jewish calendar. There's literally a season of love. It's called cuffing season. And it starts with women prancing in the vineyards in white dresses and nothing else, for fertility reasons. I'm not kidding.
You got to get those grapes hot and bothered.
Yeah, you got to get them grapes hot and bothered. So Tom and I have started discussing outlining this because, yes, I was like, we need more passive income so you don't have to work as much. And also because it's ridiculous. Let's write it.
I'm sure we're going to talk about this more on the episode on the business of writing. But the way you actually make money as a writer is through back catalogs and building a back catalog that people want to go back to and read.
Mm-hmm.
It's a business that builds momentum. So if you're not writing stories that people are going to want to go back to, they're not going to be reading your current thing and going, oh wait, you also wrote that? Oh. Right. And wanting to get into it.
What they're really saying is, I like your writing voice. I would like to review further. Like, I would like to spend more time in this storytelling voice.
Yeah.
What else you got?
I mean, it's the real reason Neil Gaiman has gotten so popular is he's written a lot of different stories that people can jump in through. Just like Terry Pratchett so many of them are in Discworld, but there's so many different jumping in points for the same writer that once you like their style of writing, you can find a lot more of which part of their catalog also contains that. But yeah, it is a back catalog system. It is,
that's what the actual business is. It's building up that back catalog and then building up a fandom that will buy the new thing when the new thing comes out and will keep feeding people back through the back catalog to keep you in sales. That's the real secret to all of this.
And don't pressure yourself. Don't. I said this before the last break. I'll say it again. Don't look at other people's skills, other people's media, and other people's stuff, because we now know since Simon & Schuster that a lot of the bragging rights that some of these big authors have are basically pay-per-use. Pulitzer's, New York Times bestseller list.
Oh yeah.
Los Angeles Times bestseller list. These are now, these bragging rights, you shouldn't be excited at them because, if it's like a literary convention and you get a review from a literary convention that's doing like a reading writing convention that's doing a thing, that's one thing. But the big writing things now, we know now that these big authors are not selling the books that they're selling, that the majority of their income does not come from book sales, and that stressing yourself out to try to be the next giant author is something that's going to kill your soul.
Yes.
Because if you're writing, if you love your writing, if you love your books, if you love your worlds, they're because you love them, not because you have accomplished the extreme 1% of elite writers. Maybe you'll be the lucky one. I hope you're the lucky one. But
we would love for, someone
Don't-
from AuthorTube to be the breakout success.
but don't give up because you're not. Don't
But
give up because you're not.
Because you aren't the one in a million doesn't invalidate your effort.
I say there's two reasons everyone should write their stories. And if you're not having these two reasons, honestly, I kind of wonder, why are you still writing? And let's be honest, you're writing for therapy, because writing is a great way to process all the crazy stuff in your life.
Enjoy the Santa Closet by C.E. Dorset now.
Yeah, I know some of your background stories, so I have some idea what to expect.
Right, yep.
And the second reason is, it's a fun story you want to just share with other people. You have thought about literally printing large type print and forcing people to read it because it's a story you want to share.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not for those, what are you doing? Like,
and sometimes
that's why people will also read your stuff, is they want to see how to process their own life situations that they haven't thought of. They want other solutions.
I would like to be able to support myself with this, but because it's a creative art, that's not a strong motivator. At least not if you're looking for success. If you're looking for success, it should be, I wish to share my perspective with the world. I wish to take you on a storytelling journey with me. And I want all of y'all to get on this bus. But making money off of people is not a strong primary motivator.
And it's a difficult one to accomplish, versus when you think about your story, do you cackle a little bit inside about other people reading this? Because several of the stories we kind of cackle, like, let's see what strings we can pull in their hearts.
So Tom and I grew up as teenagers in Oxford, Mississippi. And the thing is, Oxford is like capital P for prestige. Okay. If you are some literary bigwig at some point in your own lifetime, you are going to go to Oxford, Mississippi, to the home of Ole Miss. They have regular book festivals. They have a very aggressive creative writing and English department who will invite anybody big in the planet, to come as a guest speaker, blah, 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 blah. So, but there's not a lot to do in Oxford. It's a tiny town. There's literally only 10,000 townspeople and 10,000 college students. That includes grad school there.
It's a small college too.
It is a small college or a small university, even among universities. So you go there, you're like some literary bigwig, or you at least have a very big deal publisher who, wants all the awards. So they're like, no, you have to go. So you end up in Oxford at some point in the 90s. And what that meant is you wandered the streets of Oxford. There's only a handful because there's nothing to do. The mall is the tiniest mall you've ever seen in your life. There's only 2 bookstores, and one of them is a university bookstore. So it really doesn't have anything fun to read. And there's only one other bookstore, Square Books, owned and operated by Ron Shapiro. And where is Square Books? It's on the square.
Haworth.
It's on the square in Oxford. And
Ron
there's only
Haworth.
4. There's what? What?
Haworth. Ron Haworth.
I thought it was Ron Shapiro. No?
No.
All right. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to get into this. Doesn't matter. It's Ron. And there's only 4 roads that lead into and through the square. And so you're going to walk it. Right? There's one road from the university that leads directly to the square. And that's what everyone tells you to take. And you just walk it. And so we literally, as teenagers, used to actually hang out with literary authors, Pulitzer Prize winners, people who won everything from the Hugo Award to, I don't know, some French like Medal of Honor crap. You name it, we did not care. We were teenagers because they were sitting there on the square. There's literally benches. If you go look at pictures of Oxford Square, you can see the benches that have been desegregated. And we would just be sitting there and they're like, hey, hello, teenager. What are you doing? Like, is this fun? And like, yes, you just go square squatting is what it is called in Oxford. You literally sit on the benches and you watch, it's called square squatting, and you watch the other cars promenade by and wave at the people sitting on the benches of the square. And this is what you do for fun on Friday and Saturday nights because that is how boring Oxford is. So when I say we have hung out with literary giants, I am not exaggerating. And I am here to tell you that having had more than a few conversations with these really big deal literary people, some of which have now passed away, every one of them was like, I cannot believe that I am like a household name. I did not see this coming either. And it's like, well, then what happened? How did you become a big deal writer? And they're like, entirely by accident and luck. And a lot about other people introducing me to other important networking people who could like move my career forward. It had nothing to do with me. It was other people who either liked what I did or they saw they could make money off of me. This is where we get our knowledge from. It's just hanging out with literary giants, square squatting, and going to sit at Square Books and like literally taking like real names around and introducing them to everyone else we like on the square because we were friendly teenagers. I'm an extrovert, if you haven't noticed. And it's like, okay, are you bored? Sure, I'll take you around. And then we can go walk over to the mall and you can get a corn dog at Corn Dog 7. And they're like, is that the fun thing to do? Like, it's one of the few things to do. So yeah, we're going to go get a corn dog and a root beer. Like, that's what we did. My parents used to think it was hilarious that we would bring home like people who'd won Nobel Prizes. We're like, hey, they were just wandering the streets of Oxford and they said they were hungry. So I knew you were making like baked chicken, Ma. They're like, what? That's what we did as teenagers because there was nothing to do at Oxford. But that's what I mean of like we inadvertently ended up chatting with a lot of people with a lot of outward success. Every one of them said the same thing. I have no idea how I became successful and a household name. It doesn't make sense to me either. It was essentially, it happened because it was advantageous to other people to like talk about my book at parties or to say, oh, I know them, I'm their agent, and so on. It wasn't me or my stuff. I just set out to write a fun story, or this was a story I couldn't ignore. And after 5 years, I finally sat down after my dad died and wrote it out. Like that sort of, that's the kind of things these people told us when we were teenagers. So what we mean by that is if you are looking for that kind of success, apparently there is no such thing as a direct road there that you did not buy yourself. So if you are not somebody with a ridiculous amount of money and no cocaine habit, then
looking at you, Ben Platt.
Yeah. Then the only way to get to that kind of success is a circus route whereby you write what they say in your heart. You write what appeals to you. You write what like you can't not write. You write what you would write anyway. If no one even saw it, you would still write it. You write
Tell the story.
You write the story out and then you make it available to other people. And if luck shines on you, eventually somebody who can move you up the ladder moves you up another rung. But you can't depend on that. Just go put the story out there.
I mean, if you go look up on YouTube right now, they just put out a video. I want to say it was in Business Insider, put out a little mini documentary on Afro Man's Because I Got High. And they went and interviewed everyone involved. And you will hear him, several times, everyone remark on how did this get big? Well, each step of the way, there was someone who's like, oh, we could make some money on this. Mm-hmm. And then there was a bigger fish that went, oh, we can make some money on this. And then there's another bigger fish. Like, there were all these people involved that kept making it bigger. It wasn't oh, because he figured out the secret of success. No, it was that it was obvious other people enjoyed this.
And everybody else above the chain wanted a little bit of the pie.
And they saw it as easily marketable.
Yep.
Which again is not the same as writing to market.
Yeah, because when Afro Man put out Because I Got High, weed was incredibly illegal everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And no one was making songs like this. It was just a happy, silly song that, ostensibly could be considered a cautionary tale. So it was okay, even though it dealt with drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But all of his songs were happy and cheerful, and that's what people liked.
Mm-hmm.
All the other ones he put out on that album were also all just fun songs. So everyone's like, yeah, I want to hear this because it makes me happy too to listen to this song.
So the one thing that we haven't really talked about, I don't think any of the times that we've discussed burnout, is the perils of the flow state. This is what we're all seeking. And when we get into that place, that's because we're challenging ourselves just enough that we're capable of doing what we're wanting to do. It's not too easy and it's not too hard. It's in the sweet spot of what we're doing. And one of the things that I have found over the years when I've had a lot of creative meltdowns, it's either I'm trying to write a story that's just so, I don't want to say easy to write, but it's so like what I've done 1,000 times before that it's just boring. And my brain is just like, no, I'm not going to participate in this. I'm not going to do this. We've done this already. I'm bored. I'm tired. I'm going to go play video games over here. Bye. And it just runs off. Or what I found recently where I had stretched myself unknowingly too far and was starting to kind of exit this postmodern milieu that I had lived in for so long and was trying out these new techniques that I had been experiencing in books that I loved, in things that I was really enjoying that I didn't really know how to do. And I didn't know that there were words for them. I was just trying to write more like this stuff that I was reading that was really exciting to me. And that caused burnout because I didn't know what I was doing. I was so far outside of my comfort zone and outside of my understanding that I literally had to educate myself. When I found out, oh, there's a word for this thing, this art movement that I'm really enjoying right now. Oh, and all of these techniques have names. Okay, so what is this technique called? Oh, it's called that. Oh, here's articles on how people are writing it. Here's how people are making this happen in their story. Oh, that's how you make that feeling that when you're reading the story, you feel this certain way while you're reading it. Oh, I didn't know that. And getting that knowledge helped me move this effort that I'm trying to do into that flow state again. I had stretched myself too far without even knowing that I had stretched myself too far, and that caused me to get blocked.
Well, it's a thing of there's a reason there are so many different craft books out there.
Yep.
Is because, well, first of all, there is no one way to do it, but there's a reason because with different genres come different reader expectations, and you have to hit certain places because it's what the readers expect. But if you just, I love this genre, I'm going to write this genre, and you don't know those beats, you don't know those expectations, then you're going to struggle and you're going to find block and you're going to be like, well, why isn't the book that I'm writing like the book that I read?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because it's something personal that you as a writer are doing. It's because you don't know the beats to hit, because you read them and you don't realize that you're reading them. And so learning to write them becomes very difficult.
I didn't know what. Yeah, I'm sorry. I did.
Oh no, I that's why this year one of my things was I attended 4 writers conferences to try to improve my writing because I started writing because I lost language. I had a stroke, I have brain damage, and I literally lost language. And that's why I started writing. And so now I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller, I have published books, I've self-published books. and trad publish books, but I still don't know the craft of writing. And after spending last year doing all of the editing and fixing and all of the stuff that I did last year, I realized I had block at the beginning of the year because there's so much that I realized that had been subconscious blocking me that then became a conscious block because I don't know. So, when you get stuck and if you don't know something, something is just wrong and you're not sure what it is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to start doing the research and looking at things and talking to the people around you. Because the thing you don't know, that you intuitively know you don't know, but you can't figure out that you don't know, could be the thing that's standing between you and the rest of your story.
Yeah, I didn't know what ironic sincerity was or how to write it. I didn't know what oscillation was. These techniques that are growing in a lot of the fiction that I really, truly love. And I was seeing them and like a child trying to mimic what I had seen, but because I didn't understand what it was about the text that gave me these feels on the inside, it wasn't even imitation. It was just, why am I not able to do this? Like, it was just completely missing the mark. And it was very frustrating. And then when I learned, there are words for this, like when I learned the word oscillation for the one technique that I was trying to do and found all of these people writing about, here's examples of it, here's how people have done it, here's people talking about how they write with this. And it was just like, all of a sudden, like, I have been approaching this completely wrong the entire time. And that's why my stories felt, because if you've probably heard me say, like, I felt like my stories were hollow, they were empty. And the reason for that was not that there wasn't emotional content in them or there wasn't things going on. It was there were these other things that I was seeing other writers do that gave me feels when I read their work. And my work wasn't giving me feels like that. And it's because I didn't know these techniques that they were using that were causing me to have those feelings. And that can really be what it is sometimes, that if you're trying to achieve a certain feel or a certain experience from the fiction, one, you may or may not be able to get it from your own fiction just because it's not fresh when you're reading it, when you're rereading it. But if you don't know what it's called, if you don't know what it is, you may be just groping in the dark. And that's kind of what I was doing for quite some time. And it was very frustrating because I feel like I did it. I made the lines on the paper. Why are the lines on the paper not art? The other thing's art. I look at it and I see this thing that moves me and I have feels about it, but I look at my thing and it's just lines on paper. Why? And it's technique things. They did this subtle thing with the color that kind of makes your brain go woogie woogie when you look at it. I didn't know about that subtle thing with the color. Let me try the subtle thing. Ooh, now my art's making my brain go woogie woogie. Yay. And that's something that I don't think we talk about enough, because while we are focused on like what craft books are you reading, so many craft books are the same thing over and over and over again. And I find it really helpful when I'm stuck on a craft thing to find somebody outside my medium. Find a painter, find an artist that is struggling with a similar conception, because they're talking about it in ways that might ring something true in me, that might, I get it. You're not talking about just how to write your beats. You're not talking about how to structure a scene or whether or not we should be using Oxford commas and all this stuff that I constantly see like rehashed in every theory book that I've read lately. Or here's all of my worksheets that I use to craft my fiction. That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. But how are you making people feel? Right? Sometimes you have to go places that you don't expect to find the information that you need. And being willing to just go out there and try to find it. Like, where is it? Putting safe search on and searching things that you think might be the right word, but definitely with safe search on, because the internet is a scary place and Rule 34 is real. But you can
and finding a different and the other thing is we all have our goggles, our lives, everything that we've ever experienced tint our goggles to a specific prism. And you have to find a way to take those off. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes they're just something is hardwired in you and you cannot take that set of goggles off. Finding someone outside of it that can see the different colors, the different angles of a scene, it's okay to reach out. It's okay to say, okay, I'm just stuck. Like Barrett does this writer's corner thing once a week or twice a month, something like that. And where people just go and you just workshop with 10 people show up in the chats and they just talk and everybody tries to workshop what this author is struggling with. And having a community to help you work through things, to see things on the outside, doing as Charlie said, going to outside of your creative sphere to other creative spheres to try to find the answer, those will get you past your block. That will help you see something that you can't see through your own goggles.
And if you would have told me a couple years ago that I would figure out what was wrong with my fiction through watching a musician whose music I like doing a video essay about why they really like erotic furry video games, I would have thought that you were insane. I feel insane just saying it out loud. But the whole point of that was I'm tired of people limiting themselves because they feel shame. Write your fiction. If it's what you love, if it's your art, do it. Be audacious. Be bold. Break through. And through that video essay, I was introduced to these literary terms that I had never heard before while she was talking about things that honestly I did not need to know existed. I really didn't need to know, but I do now, and I can never unlearn them. But you never know where that thing is going to come from that's going to just hit you upside the head. There's another musician I follow on Instagram who has been a great inspiration to me because as she's trying to learn how to write her lyrics better, she's talking about all the stuff she's learning about how to capture that emotion briefly in song. And that is so helpful in learning how to capture that emotion in a scene. Like song lyrics and the stuff that we're doing are not that different when you're just putting it on a page, because that's where she's wanting to find it. She wants the emotion to be on the page and then to make it even more when she sings. And that's a beautiful approach. And what she's learning through her writing process, writing song lyrics, is helping me as a writer. We really need to broaden our idea of where we go for that creative advice. Are they painters? Are they video game makers? Where are you going to find that? And find those people that you really like and follow their process, even when it takes you down really scary places. Because, I trust Patricia, and I knew she wasn't going to hurt me, and she didn't. Like, there was nothing like really bad in the video, just like a lot of warnings of please don't play this game. Please don't play this game unless you're into it. Please don't. I need you to understand why my music got better.
Honesty there.
And that vulnerability, because that's to me is what it came down to in Patricia's video, and what I'm trying to do with my work now is having that audacious vulnerability to show you, here are my broken places. Do you have these broken places? Let's commiserate about our broken places. And just to be able to go out there and have fun with it and embrace the darkness and be like, yeah, look, if I shake like this, you can hear all the glass shaking. Jingle, 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 jingle. But look what happens when you dance. It makes bells. Like, yes, that's what it's about for me. And getting that liberation helped me so much. And that might be what you need to do. Where are your broken places? How do you find ways to dance with them? Just that idea of taking all that broken glass inside you from where you were shattered and make it your maraca to dance to. Like, that image will forever live with me, and I love it.
And also, it's, well, this is not as far out as you were talking about, of, you know, taking your inspirations from and kind of, you know, truly cross-pollinating the creative arts. You also, it does help, though, to just go out, truly to be careful about staying in that silo of what you think of your specific realm. Of, you know, like, I've seen people who are romance writers and like, well, I only look at books that talk about romance writing. Like, they don't even look outside their own genre. And like, to me, one of the most inspiring for writing YouTube stuff I've been watching is actually this guy, Eric something, is a, you know, college level course he gives on screenwriting. And his point of view and what all his discussion points are, here are essentially all the not quite blockbuster, but major successful movies. What is it that when you line them all up, they all have in common? What are the aspects? And that essentially tells me, what is it regular humans think? How do they process a story? How do they interact with it? And so what are their actual expectations? And like, you know, and he truly talks about very specific things you will see in everything, no matter the genre, no matter the style, you will still see these elements. So please take them and use them. We've noticed if it doesn't have this, you won't see it be a major successful movie. Here's what they happen to, you know, all have in common, which means this is what humans are looking for. Because I know and recognize I am very neurodivergent. I think so differently than most people, even people of my own gender, cultural background, socioeconomic background. I am so different that it's hard for me to understand what is it that other people are looking for to be able to understand the stories I want to write. And so I've actually found just how do you make a movie script that the general populace will be interested in, actually pretty inspiring for here's the little notes you didn't know about how regular people interact with a story they're told. And it's like, okay, let me add those in, because this is like little bits of how the regular brain works. The most fascinating thing I heard from him lately was this thing he noted of, it didn't matter the movie. There is always 6 major scenes in the first act. There's 6 more scenes before the midpoint event. There's 6 more scenes before the end of the second act. And then you'll have somewhere between 2 to 4 scenes to finish up the third act. And he's like, he couldn't find a single movie that didn't use this.
Well,
like,
he was talking about successful movies.
Yeah, successful major movies.
All their money back and then made a major profit. He was specifically talking about them compared with movies that bombed in the box office.
This tells you this is how the regular average person is most easily able to accept a story and understand its development. You know, it doesn't happen too fast and it doesn't happen too slow. You will always see it at this kind of pace, no matter the genre. And it's like, well, that's good to note, because that means I need chapters that line up in this way, so people don't feel rushed through the first part of the story, and they don't feel rushed or bogged down in the second act of the story. Because, you know, even writing, you know, we've got that middle, and while it will always feel bloated because that's where everything happens, where we create the real story, we want our readers to come along with us. No one wants to be on, you know, go from the TBR to the, you know, left behind pile. And part of it is just knowing how people, you know, have been trained to enjoy a story. I know I've got original ideas that no one else can think about, but how do I make sure that they are along for the ride? You know, like, just like you'll see when people talk about roller coasters. All roller coasters share several elements in common, because humans are humans. and our adrenal systems respond very similarly. And so most people agree about what are the good roller coasters and what are the roller coasters that they would like their money back, please. Because, there's ways our emotional arcs happen. And that's what I'm kind of taking note from this one. Versus, hearing artists, visual artists talk about, the squigglies. And then, but they still have to use words to talk to you. And it does give you that inspiration for how would I then write this and say this?
It's one of the reasons why I've always paid attention to Taylor Swift, because I'm not a big fan of her music, but she knows how to tell a story that connects with people, whether that's through her marketing, through her music, or through anything else. Like she's cracked the code on how to talk to people and get them invested in a story.
Very quickly, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's and the other thing is like I said about your filter, about your goggles. When you see something, what you see and what you are writing for other people to see, you have to be aware that they might not see it the same way you see it, and could just be the way you phrase it, or it could completely just be their life experiences versus your life experience. I have seen that while most of my readers understood it, I had one reviewer that completely bashed me because I used the word virgin. And she completely missed the whole point of the entire scene, being that the one guy arguing with his cousin had to admit that he did not know anything about his wife. And she missed the whole point of the 4 months of marriage, still knew nothing about his wife because of one word. And sometimes it's when you're trying to convey something and convey emotions, it's very hard. The other thing is language changes, and how we speak and how we perceive words. And now, there's this whole lexicon that is called the Urban Dictionary for a reason. And it's because common words now have multiple meanings, including ethnic, slur, and value meanings, depending on how the word is used, when the word is used, if the word is used at all. And so writing has become so much more complex now than it is when all of these great classics were written.
I've been surprised to see the change in the last 5 years alone of the usage and also just the point of view about the term cringe. 5 years ago, you say cringe, we all knew automatically this is negative. We just, it's now dropped like a hot potato. Versus it's now used in the lexicon as guilty pleasure. People specifically looking for cringy movies to go watch. And they will ask, is it a good cringe or a bad cringe? These things change oddly and quickly, not necessarily in ways you would think, but if you're in your little silo, it's hard to know about these cultural changes.
And just being cheesy, yeah, Jenna, because some of us like a good cheese.
Some of us like some wine with our cheese.
So, are there
I feel like we can do an entire episode on coping with the death of the author as authors, because I think this is something that we all need to deal with. Is our work, once it's out into the world, it's not ours anymore.
Right.
Well, the other thing that we could pile into that is the myth of the grand author life.
Oh yeah.
Because that has become, I mean, it's, yes, we all want to write that great American breakout novel and get the big movie deal and the TV series spinoff and anime, graphic novel, we want all of it. But if the Simon and Schuster Penguin Random House antitrust thing showed us anything, it's that most of us are not the 1 or 2 percenters. And yet there are still so many people out there that are trying to push this ideal. And authors that are getting onto their second, third books, they're finishing a book, they're finishing a series, and they don't get that endorphin hit from the grand author life myth.
I mean, maybe we should though eventually do an episode just on the creative myths, because it's that the grand author myth is right there with the tortured artist myth. Of we only create great art while we are being tortured and we have problems, versus no, there is almost no piece of art ever made that we can verify that was made when somebody didn't have their Maslow's hierarchy met. Mm-hmm. They may have been doing things to try to make themselves more creative, and that actually didn't work either. But this mythology of the tortured artist is the only way to create art is such a huge lie as well.
Mm-hmm. Episode title pitch. Decolonizing
the isolated artist, that you can only create great art or write a great novel if you are completely isolated in a little bubble in a cabin. Please hope the lady doesn't come and break your ankles thing.
We forget that the author dream that we have was generated primarily around people that were independently wealthy prior to being a writer.
Yes.
And we're able to have this, like, we're allowed to have this romantic tortured dream of Emily Dickinson up in her room, writing her poetry and visiting with death, and thinking, like, one day I will be able to be tortured up in my room, doing nothing but writing my pretty, pretty poetry. Her dad and brother made so much money, and she lived off of that wealth her entire life. Like, she didn't have to make a living for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of these...
I want to live in a cabin and have 3 other people come and cook for me and clean for me and do my laundry. And
6. It was 6 total women.
Was it 6 people?
Women.
Yes, it was 6.
6 women to keep one man alive in the woods while he's just boning any other man who visits. Like, what?
I mean, that's really what it was. It was his boning shack.
Industry. It took a whole cottage industry to keep him in men. Like, what?
I mean,
it is every gay man's dream, though, I must say.
But
I think it's everyone's. Like, look, I'm not a gay man. I wish to have 6 women to, like, keep me alive and also bring me more bedroom friends. Like, yeah, I want that.
I just want to not have to, like, stop every 42 minutes to go switch the laundry load.
Oh, God.
I mean, but that's the problem with a lot of our author dreams, is that these people that inspired them were independently wealthy. Like, when we go back to, like, especially the classics of English literature, with very few exceptions, and I mean very few exceptions, these were literally landed gentry writing these stories that had inherited this property and this wealth from generations back when their ancestors stole it in the first place.
Or how about the continued fantasy of Robert Galbraith's success of, being broke and destitute and, like, completely leaving out all the family and social assistance they were getting at the time?
Like, yeah, she kept the baby with her in the coffee shop while she wrote.
That her brother owned.
Yes.
And her best friend worked at the literary agency that got her signed. She had another friend that worked at the publishing company that got her book in front of the editor. Like, we don't talk about any of that.
No, of course not.
And the thing is that's another thing.
Despite being clinically depressed and no pills necessary. Like, I'm sorry, what?
But see, these myths are another thing that give authors block because they, you're so pushed into, oh, well, there's this thing. And it's like, no.
Because everyone
And it's like, well, I had to stop writing today to go to work. I had to stop writing today to go be a mom life. I had to stop writing today because, I have a farm. This door leads to the farm.
And I mean, I have to use my 4 hours of creativity to make money. Yeah. That's what I spend it on most of the time. And then I don't have any creativity to spend on writing because I had to make actual money right now.
Right.
And
okay.
We just every week tell your story, be a storyteller, love your words, and you can do this.
You can. And also, like, sure, it's a different timeline than other people's timeline, they did it in so many weeks or months or even a handful of years, and it's going to take you longer. Who cares? Comparison is the death of creativity. So unless you're trying to murder your own creativity, stop comparing. Stop even comparing yourself to your younger self from 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Yep.
All those people are gone. It's just you now. You are the rightful holder of your body.
And honestly, if you do need to compare yourself to somebody, I offer myself as tribute because I have had all of the problems, from the health problems, the physical problems, the depression problems. There are axe murderers in my backstory. Like all of this, like day jobs, all of it. You can find, if I can find a way to write, you can find a way to write. Like that to me is the moral of my story.
I'm supposed to be dead.
Me too.
I collapsed at the bus stop, was put on a helicopter, flown to the mountains, to the hospital. On the way to the mountains, there was so much turbulence, I actually lifted my head to look out the front of the helicopter because I wanted the hell out of the ground. And I had this stupid thought of, gosh, I need to repaint my toenails. Got through at the hospital and they're like, you've had a stroke. And I couldn't carry on a conversation because I literally could not make the word I wanted, the word I knew I wanted, come out of my lips or come out of my fingertips. And now they come out of my fingertips obsessively. I literally, this has become my OCD coping mechanism. And Tom has seen me had a breakdown because I couldn't get to write. Now, please just talk to me about what you read so that I can not feel bad about the fact that I haven't written in 3 days.
Oh, honey.
But the other part is to remember when you are writing, when you're being creative, that this is a hobby. This is something you are doing for fun. So you have to, if you're not finding ways to have fun with it, you got to find something else to do.
It's the same thing I used to tell everybody at the video store and everybody at the home party business. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And I meant it, and I still mean it. If you are not having fun while you're writing, you are doing it wrong. I am here to tell you that everything, every teacher, every parent, every mentor who has ever told you you need to just buckle down and just focus, they are all wrong. Every last one of them is wrong. And we've known that for decades about human brains, because the only time human brains are effective is when they're having fun. Whatever feels fun to your brain is also your brain at optimal level. So if you're not having fun, you're fucking it up. Stop doing that. Go get a snack. You're not allowed to do it if you're not having fun. I'm sorry. I'm telling you that now. I am your school teacher, and I am telling you, you have to walk away from the desk because you are screwing this up. Go get a snack, go take a walk, and come back. And if you can't have fun, you need to try it from a different approach because it means you are doing it wrong. There is a right way and a wrong way to write stories. And the wrong way is anytime you're miserable. And if you don't know when you're miserable, that's your assignment. You have to start observing. How do I feel? I don't know how I feel. I feel nothing. Oh, that's a sign. That is a big flag. If you're like, I feel nothing, that is such a red flag that you've now wrapped yourself in a red flag and people are mistaking it for a scarf. That is such an important sign. If you feel nothing, you need to go find your feelings because they are the ones that tell you whether you feel safe or whether your brain is fully functioning or whether you are in danger. Your emotions are merely there to keep you alive and healthy. Okay? That is literally what they are there for. They are there to go, hey, let's get out of this field. There's a predator watching in the woods and everybody's got quiet. Like, that is the point of emotions, is to keep you alive. So if you don't feel them anymore because you cut yourself off, that's a big deal. That actually does matter. Tom, would you like to quickly, I see you leaning in, the ADHD little cat move of I have something to say now.
Oh, no, I don't actually. I've been having some fun thoughts, including the classic from a decade ago of It's Too Quiet, Where's Thomas?
The child still exists, although he's not as young anymore. But literally imagine an entire extended family that this boy was part of. There's children from several different siblings, right? They're all adults. All the siblings are adults. And they've all got, so there's a passel of 7 children. Every single adult in this entire extended family, anytime they would get together, la 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 la, and then all of a sudden, one would stop and look off, and then look back to the group and go, "It's too quiet. Where is Thomas?" And we started using this as a term. It's too quiet, and the other would go, "Where's Thomas?" If it's too quiet, because Thomas was the loudest child I have ever actually met in real life. And I have been a nanny, an au pair, and a babysitter for literally decades of my life. This was the loudest child. Even when he was quiet, there was an audible hum around him. He could not be silent no matter what. I offered him money, candy, everything he ever wanted, and he could not be silent for 30 frickin' seconds. So if it was too quiet, you knew, wait, Thomas has gone too far. We can't hear him. And yeah, invariably, he had hooked the neighbor's dog up to a wheelbarrow and then was throwing pine cones at the dog while other dogs watched on in amazement in the neighbor's yard while the neighbor was taking a bath and so could not hear his poor dog. That kind of nonsense. It's too quiet. Where's Thomas?
But it is you need to always hear your emotions. If you don't, this problem. That is, Tamama posted a really good video from, I can't remember the YouTuber's name offhand.
Happy Gamer
GG.
Something?
Something Gamer GG. Who's an actual therapist and was talking about, if you don't hear your emotions, this is a problem. You need to always know your emotions. This is what we found in more than 2/3 of people with any addictive behavior have this situation, alexithymia, where you don't know your emotions. And it's because if you don't know your emotions, you will get overwhelmed. And then you quickly got to deal with the overwhelmed part and, quiet them down. And that's where the addiction stuff comes in, because it's gotten too loud in your head, but you didn't notice it getting louder to begin with. And that is where the negative consequences of addiction come in.
I know you're not trying to call me out, but I feel very called out right now.
I have talked with Glory that I really think you do need to watch this video. It may help you with some of your own sort of, here's some things that may help you. Because, yeah, it does feel a little bit like he might be, reading you. I say it with love. I really do say this with love, Charlie. And I really think like it would be, it's a good hour of you to like for you to spend listening, because he also talks about, all right, here's the therapies we then do to help people.
Yeah.
Because no human they've found yet cannot be retrained to hear their emotions.
Yeah, it's possible.
You
Everybody
were
can
taught
learn.
to not hear them. Guess what? You can be taught to hear them again. No problem. There's no brain structure that stops just about anyone. If you do, that is incredibly rare genetic disorder that they saw from the beginning, and it's probably got a name already.
Yeah.
But everyone else, we can do this.
So
the other thing is we don't hear our own positive voice.
Mm-hmm.
In all the loud of the negative of the world and all the loud of the negative that we hear in the voices in our head, our own positive affirming voice from maybe that one person that loved us, it becomes like the noise from the people that live under the airport. We don't hear our own positive messages. We don't hear our own affirmations. You can do this. Look what you're doing. Look what you're accomplishing. Good job. We don't hear that from our own voice. We don't hear that ourselves.
I actually say those things out loud to myself. And I say it as a litany. It's taken me a long time to feel comfortable with saying it out loud where other people could hear me, because I felt a lot of shame. I was mocked for it when I was young. But, Tom knows it was an oddity to him when we started living together of when I'm struggling, I'll say, you can do this. You can do this. You can do this. Like, we're talking like I'll say it 20 times in a couple minutes while I'm trying to do something. And I'm not even really thinking about it, but I need to keep hearing it to keep me moving forward, or I will quit because it just feels like too much. But I like it that I say it out loud, but I understand not everybody feels safe enough to say it out loud all the time. I have also at work been mistaken for encouraging a lot of office equipment. People walk by and they think I'm talking to the scanner or the photocopier or the printer. Oh, you could do this. Come on, baby. You got this. You got this. And it's like, yeah, let's just think I'm talking to the printer. That's fine. But say it out loud. Say the affirmations out loud. Say it in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror and go, you got this today. It feels uncertain. Sure. Acknowledge the truth. It feels uncertain, but you've got this. I believe in you. Let's go get him, Tiger. Because you need to hear it out loud. Because guess what? Your brain really can't tell the difference between you just making it up and saying it and you believing it. Your brain actually can't tell the difference. So do it.
Stuart Smalley was right.
Yeah, I was just about to bring him up because for me, laughter is the one thing that breaks me out of the states that I get into. And I will, poor Brian has had to witness this so many times over the years, walk into the bathroom, look at myself in the mirror and go, you can do this because you're good enough. You're smart enough. And doggone it, people like you. And it makes me laugh every time because I think of Stuart Smalley. And for some reason, that skit just always made me laugh when I was younger. And it helps snap me out.
Well, it's the thing most people are trained from childhood who are afraid to say. They are constantly contradicted of those very words versus, no, you're an adult. You got this. You know more than you realize.
And you're capable more than you feel.
Because if you didn't know and you didn't realize, you wouldn't think about it in the first place. Humans are weird that way.
If you couldn't tell a story, it would never occur to you to write a story to tell. It would never occur to you.
Yep.
If somebody said, have you ever thought of writing that down? You'd be like, gosh, that never occurred to me. And you would mean that sincerely. And that's how you know that you are capable and ready to write a story, is because you've thought about doing it. You've felt the desire to do it. You had the beginnings or an inkling of the story. You just need to put it down in order to share it with others.
I mean, that pretty much is my battle cry when I'm leading a group into a misadventure with me. We've got it. Let's do this.
Okay. Every time.
And halfway, and then of course, I'm literally like, why do we follow? But
the audacity and overconfidence of Brian. like, may I one day be as audacious as any
Like-
white man in America.
Without the hatred for each other, like we are very much Chernobog and Belobog. Like he is all optimism and go for it, and like everything is sunshine and roses, and we're gonna get there. And I am not, just not.
Yep.
It's like the rap.
So, does anyone else have any final thoughts before we wrap up for the day about refilling the creativity well, addressing burnout in all its many forms, and writer's block and any other writer ailments?
Do not be afraid to be obsessive. Like, not in a bad way, not in a stalkery way, but when you find that one thing that gives you dopamine, that one thing that gives you joy, that one thing that just for some reason feels like life to you, and you want to just put it on repeat, put it on repeat. If people around you start complaining, put your headphones on. Just let that thing give you life, whatever it is. If it's a song, if it's a TV show, if it's a book that you just need to read over and over and over again because something about it moves you. If it's a picture that you just want to stare at because something in it moves you, whatever it is, just let yourself do it.
Chase Alice, the white rabbit always lies.
That's a good one.
Maggie, do you have any?
I was just going to say, if you get blocked, if you get stuck, if you start falling into that repeating vortex because the words aren't coming, you don't have to write. There are so many non-writerly creative things you can do to refill that well within you. And, you know, it sounds cliche. Oh, go take a walk. Go take a walk. Look at the different colors of leaves on the ground.
A change of scenery really does help.
I made an oracle deck.
Yeah, Charlie made a oracle deck of almost tarot style cards that are completely and utterly gorgeous. Take my money, please.
March.
And the thing is you don't, if you're blocked, if you're stuck, there are things. Flash fiction is fabulous. Write your own ending to a scene, to a book, to a movie. It's a great exercise, you know, where other people went wrong and you felt unsatisfied. Turn your own creativity on. But that said, you don't have to write. Learn a new craft. Take your pieces of broken glass, make a maraca out of them, or stick them on a piece of bake in the oven patty and make yourself a mosaic.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many other creative things you can do, and they count. They count as, call them writing research. I bake. I try new recipes. I am constantly doing weird things.
There are several years where I was blocked because I was essentially dealing with the offset grief of the loss of my mother. And instead I learned to crochet and made boxes and boxes of crochet. I started making all these crochet designs myself from scratch. And now I'm sending them out as care packages because I literally made so many I couldn't sell them locally. There were too many. But it really did help me get through it.
But that is a completely invalid, worthy creative effort for an author. Because you're processing your emotions through an alternate creative format. I garden. I raise bees. That is part of the way, and besides the whole baking and cooking thing, that's part of the way I process, part of the way I focus my creativity. I mean, there are times I'll get blocked. I'll drive my husband crazy because I'll take everything out of the cabinets in the kitchen and start hand washing all of the dishes while I am talking out loud to myself over and over and over again about a scene.
Breach it. And
he just turns the hockey game up louder.
I see nothing. I saw everything.
My wife's totally sane. No one can make me say differently.
Nothing.
I have paperwork. It says I can be out.
Tom, do you have final thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say the one that's the hardest for most of our crowd to hear.
Okay.
Which is when you're creatively blocked. And I say this from experience, although actually more on the other side, because I have a lot of creative friends. Tell other people and then ask them to play with you.
How dare you, sir?
Now, you can play the improv game. You can play a video game.
You can play a board game.
You can play a board game. But ask the friends that you actually feel you belong with, that you feel safe and comfortable enough to actually admit that your current, hobby and creative outlet is blocked and you're not getting anywhere. You need someone to go play and hang out with. Go talk to them and go do something with them. Because often part of the block is you are stuck inside your head and you need someone to help you get outside your head. Because there's some kind of negative tapes you have brought back up from the depths of your childhood that didn't happen. And you are now having the hard time of rewriting those tapes again. It helps to hear other people and hear those words spoken aloud by someone else about you. And it's one people don't talk about enough. They always, we're in America. And so we often hear, very much the individual responsibility and behaviors. But you have friends in part specifically for when you are stuck in something. Go talk with your friends. They will help. They want to help. They want to be there, but they don't know if you're hiding it.
Reach out. You have a community. There are people here. We have a very lovely little corner of author too. And if you're stuck, you're not alone. And there might be, like someone out there, there might be a place where one of us is going to actually look at you and say, you're not at peace with whatever this scene is that's blocking you. Maybe you shouldn't have it in this book. And that's okay too. It's okay to leave things out.
And they may point out your blind spot of this sure seems like something you've dealt with. Is that why you're having problems? And you may go, oh, is that it? Oh, wait, how would I actually then have handled it when it happened to me? I've known a lot of people that's happened too.
And it's okay to have things you haven't dealt with. It's okay to have things you aren't ready to face. And, we want you to love the words like we love the words. We want you to not feel the pressure and the stress. This isn't high school. You're not going to get a grade. And you shouldn't feel like writing your book and getting it done is, if you don't do it this way in this time frame with these things, you are a worthless person. Putting out those words makes you valuable.
It is absolutely valid to call yourself a writer and not having written anything down of over a year or 3 years or 5 years or whatever. You don't have to have output to be here. Just an interest in hanging out with fellow writers is all that's necessary to be part of this community. That's it. And nothing invalidates that. Just like, hi, I'm a writer. I haven't written anything in years. Okay, that doesn't stop you from being a writer, because you know when you're a writer. You know when the stories are in your DNA and you can't not. You know, because you're attracted. It's terrible. It's magnetic. Yeah, you know when you belong here. Because no one else can stand to be with us. Only other storytellers can stand to be here. All the rest of them are like, zoinks. So, you belong here.
I've told this story a couple times, but I always feel like it's worth repeating, not because it says anything good about me, but because it was true. When my first book came out, I was at a sci-fi convention, and the current president of the Sci-Fi Writers Guild of America was seated at our table. We had a writer's breakfast, and we were all there. It was Sunday morning, and she was asking us, well, how many books did you sell this weekend? And we were all very proudly telling our totals of how much we had sold. And this woman had the audacity to say to all of us first-time writers, well, one day when you're a real writer, you will sell hundreds of books.
X.
And I
What am I, an
lost
imaginary
it.
writer? Am I like not real? Am I just a figment of your imagination? Please tell my
lost it.
landlord that.
And I looked at that woman who I used to follow around with a clipboard when I was a little kid, asking all the writing advice from. That's like one of my heroes. Looked at her in the face and was like, no, woman, I was a real writer when I put pen to paper.
Mhm.
I was a successful writer when I finished my first book. I was a published writer when that book got published. I will be a best-selling writer when I have a book on a best-selling list, and I'll be an award-winning writer when I get an award for something that I've done. But I have always been a real writer. And the table looked like I had just done violence in the whole world. And I have not been forgiven for this yet. I am not allowed to sell books at that convention to this day as a result of doing this. But it's true. The audacity of anyone, if anyone ever tells you you are not a real writer, spit in their coffee. It's the one regret that I have of that day that I didn't.
I'm going to tell you.
No, her agent paid for my breakfast. Yeah, for both of our
I
breakfasts.
tell you again, like back to Oxford, Mississippi, the land of writers. People would literally visit Oxford. They would, scientists would come for scientific, science, whatever conventions, and would like start writing there. And they used to be like, why is it I'm writing every piece of paper in my hotel room? What's happening? And we used to joke, and we would tell any visitor, oh, it must be something in the water. Okay, it was not anything in the water. When you're surrounded by that many storytellers who are all telling stories, it gets you in the mindset of telling stories, and you start telling stories. I'm going to tell you. So, you could not throw a stick and not hit a writer up in North Mississippi back then in the 90s. And every one of them just called themselves writers. Oh, I'm a Southern writer, or I'm a writer. And not a single person ever invalidated, like, oh, what have you published? You're not a real writer if you're not published, or you're not a real writer if you haven't published a novel, or you don't have an agent, or all of this gatekeeping. There was zero.
Or you didn't go to college, or you didn't go to college and get a writer's degree.
There was absolutely no gatekeeping going because, and this is the land of Southern writers, okay? Mississippi, look, nothing to anybody else from any other state, but y'all, we got a lot of storytellers in Mississippi. And there's no gatekeeping. Everybody is a writer if you call yourself a writer. Nobody's like, oh, what are your qualifications? Can I see your credentials? Nobody does that here. Because to be a writer, nobody would call themselves a writer who wasn't a writer. Because this is not a life I would choose for myself.
No, Glory.
Right?
Glory, let's be honest about, at least here in Mississippi, the reason you do not ask them for their qualifications is because you highly risk the probability that they will go to their trunk and hand you a book that you will now be expected to read and tell them about next month when you see them again.
Like, this is why you never ask, oh, what have you written lately? Because they're going to go to the trunk, which is how I have literal boxes of the magazines I was published in. I'm like, oh, you want a copy? Like, this is why you don't go to John Grisham's office in Oxford, Mississippi, because he won't let you leave without a copy of A Time to Kill. Which is true. He had 5,000 copies, just like literally stacked up on his back wall.
All with a little hand-drawn image of a pelican in a business suit holding a briefcase
Why?
for his next story, The Pelican Brief.
Pelican brief. No, God. But like, this is because if you call yourself a writer, you're a writer. This is not a life anyone should choose for themselves. It's a lifestyle that you are like chosen for. You did not do the choosing. This is a rough life. So here it is, the support group meeting that we do every Monday. And speaking of, next week, we're going to be talking about the book business, the financials, the budget, how to not go broke doing this life you did not choose for yourself.
The 3 letters every writer should know considering getting published, whether indie or trade, R, O, and I.
What is a return on investment? You need to know. Because again,
Yes.
you're trying to remain financially solvent while not denying the truth that you're a writer. Not that you want it to be. Not that I would choose this for you, my darlings. But here you are, unable to not be a writer. So let's try to keep you financially solvent as much as possible in this dystopian century. Do tune in. And if you would like to join us on screen, let us know. We'll get you a link to next week's episode. Oh, thank you all so much for coming. I've had a wonderful time. I hope you've all had a good time. I hope you've gotten a couple good tips, a couple ideas. If you take nothing away, I hope that you've taken away the idea of, let me go watch some craptastic trailers and feel better about my own writing. Yes, do. Tom and I have talked, and we're definitely going to set up a channel on our Discord server for trailers. Because again, this is how Tom helps me cope. I found it to be a useful coping mechanism. Charlie knows I was helping Charlie and Laura and Brian last night with craptastic movies I'm looking forward to watching.
That raccoon, though.
The raccoon.
It was in my dreams last night. I could not escape it.
So Lindsay Lohan has a Christmas movie coming out this week on Netflix. There's a raccoon in it. You need to go look up the trailer. It's called Falling for Christmas. I can't make this raccoon up. It needs its own spin-off show. I said it.
My husband has already bought tickets for Violent Night.
Yes, I did. Laura had not seen the trailer till last night, and I got to watch her face as she watched the trailer.
There's so many explosions. My brain is going to be so fried afterwards.
So ridiculous. So, goodbye, everybody. We're going to wave you off and meet you in the Discord server in just a little bit. Bye-bye. La, la, la.